Shelley, can you do a roll call, please?
Mr. Mayor. District 1, Councilman Rios.
Here.
District 2, Councilman Pastor.
Present.
District 3, Councilman Easton.
Here.
District 4, Vice Mayor Stapleton.
Here.
District 5, Councilman Giles.
Present.
District 6, Councilman Shipley.
Here.
Mayor Guerrero.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Shelley. I'd like to invite Chief Robinson up for the invocation, please.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for this opportunity we have to be gathered here this evening to conduct the business of the City of Globe. We're grateful for those who have chosen to serve this city and as elected officials, and ask thy blessings be with them this evening as they deliberate on the business tonight, that they'll do so in a manner that will be of benefit to this community and to the residents. Please watch over and protect all those represented here and the families represented here, that they may be kept safe and healthy. And these things we pray for in this in Jesus Christ. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have two public hearings prior to our scheduled meeting. The first public hearing is for the revision of the city fee schedule to include civil restoration permit fees. And I'd like to invite our clerk to explain a little bit about this hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Tonight we have a public hearing for the revision of the city fee schedule. And this is to include the civil restoration fee regarding our no-cut policy to our existing fee schedule. Statute requires that we post a notice of intent for 60 days on our website, and that was posted on November the 19th. This will be our first read of the resolution tonight, and we'll be back at our first meeting in February for possible approval. And if approved, the fees would go into effect March the 1st. This is a time for, again, public comment regarding the fees, and so if you'd like to open the public meeting.
Thank you, Shelley.
Mr. Mayor,
Freddie?
On this motion, on this item, I'd like to recuse myself from any
Okay.
conflict of interest.
Okay, Shelley, will have the record show that Freddie will be accusing
Yes,
himself.
sir, Mr. Mayor.
So we open it up to any public comment on this subject at this time.
I have a comment, Mayor. I'm all for this. After the money that we've spent on the streets all over Globe, we spent over $4 million, Jeremy, at least.
At least.
And it really bothered me to see, after we did Broad Street, Broad Street was such disarray for years. Right after we did that, they, I don't know who did, but they tore up down by King of Floors, a good section of that. And we just all need to communicate more on when we should do that. It was definitely could have done before we laid all that new asphalt. I think it's just a matter of not communicating. Then it happened again as we speak right now. I live on Cottonwood, and that's all tore up right now. They're putting in gas lines, and Cottonwood was replaced, I don't know, 6 months ago maybe, and now it's all tore up again. So we, as a city, cannot keep investing money when, on items like this, when it can be done prior. So that's all I have to say, man. It's definitely important.
Thank you, Mike. Charlie?
And so I will say what I said when we were discussing this whole issue. The city is not for profit. The city is for the residents. The city is for the community that pays for the services. The utility companies, while they are our partners and we appreciate them, they are for profit. So we have to protect, we, the city, has to protect our investments and we have to spend our residents' dollars to the best of our ability. And I'm sorry, the utility companies, they're gonna have to pay when they damage our infrastructure.
Thank you, Shirley. Shelley, what's the next step? When does this go into effect officially then?
Mr. Mayor, if council approves it at our first meeting in February, then the fees would go into effect March 1st.
March 1st.
And we are not able to waive the rules and approve it tonight? No, okay. Are you sure? Okay.
Any comment from the public?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, just a reminder, the permits and the requirements of reporting are in place. We just can't levy a fee against them until this passes. But the reporting requirements and so everything but the fees are in place now.
So anything done now is not affected by this? If they do anything before then, it's...
The reporting and the filing and the paperwork, we'll keep track of that. And I don't think we have anything in limbo that's kind of...
We have one that just went under the wire, and anything from tonight forward, we will get moved.
So we'll probably won't let anything else go through until this February 1st date.
Okay.
But we could, as long as, that we know of now, we don't want to put something really important on hold of that.
So we'll go ahead and close the public hearing for this fee schedule. And we'll open up the second public hearing. This is for a class number 12 restaurant liquor license application for Jumbo Chinese Restaurant located at 2058 Highway 60. And Shelley, can you explain a little bit about this public hearing?
Mr. Mayor and Council, the Jumbo Chinese Restaurant filed an application with the Arizona Department of Liquor for a Class 12 liquor license, beer and wine for their restaurant. The notice was sent to the city and posted December the 17th, and we removed it on January the 9th. So the 20-day posting period requirement has been met, and my office did not receive any public comment. So this is just another opportunity for the public to speak to council regarding this application. Okay. If it's on the agenda further down, and if council approves it, then it'll be sent back to the state, and the state will finish that process. Okay.
Thank you, Shelley. Any comment, public comment? We'll go ahead and close second hearing. Now we'll open our official council meeting, and we'll start with summary of current events. And Fernando, we'll start with you.
We've had 3 town hall meetings regarding, for lack of a better name for it, we called it Community Pride. Basically, the idea was to bring citizens together to try to identify things that we could do as citizens, not necessarily the government, to improve the globe, make it more attractive, make it a nicer place to live, somewhere we can take pride in living. And the first 2 meetings went well. They were well attended. We had a lot of good ideas. We had comments on things that the city could do to improve the community. The third meeting was more to decide, how do we move forward? Do we form an official committee of the city, which would then be, of course, subject to open meeting laws? You'd have to be appointed. There's a lot of regulation that would go with it. We could have been just an ad hoc citizens committee trying to do good things, or we could possibly form a nonprofit. So the consensus of the group at that time was, let's go ahead and do a citizens committee, not an official committee. We had an offer and discussions with the EDC, and they said if we were trying to go after grant funds to do some of our projects, we could use them as a fiscal agent. So that's where we're at now. Tomorrow night, we're going to have our kind of first meeting of brainstorming of coming up with things that we can do. So everybody's welcome. I think the idea is that we'd start in Globe, but my vision is that we don't limit it to Globe, that we look at the community as a whole. But that'll be up to the group because we don't really have like a chief telling everybody what to do. It'll be the citizens that decide what's their priorities. And so a committee of the people, for the people, by the people. So I'm kind of excited. If you can come to the depot tomorrow at 6 p.m., we'll end when we end. I imagine it'll go a little bit longer the first time, but love to have you there.
Thank you. Freddie?
If I'm for that. And the place would be where?
At the train depot?
Train depot. Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. I'd like to thank the Union County Supervisors for allowing us their chambers to hold our meeting today, as our chambers at City Hall is being upgraded, remodeled. So thank you to Union County Supervisors. And the other thing is, sometime back there was a grand opening for the downtown business Copper Splash. I missed it, I was not available, but I did walk in a couple weeks ago and introduced myself and spoke with one of the owners. If you haven't been there, Copper Splash, it's a great gifting place. For home, you could also purchase some goods there, but they really have some really fine art, and I think it's a gem in our downtown. So if you haven't been there, please pay a visit. Thank you.
Thank you, Freddie. Shirley?
I just have a few things. I'd like to invite everybody to come to the Nob Hill Block Watch group. It will meet next Tuesday, 2 Tuesdays from now, on the 29th at 10 a.m. They meet in the Pentecostal Church across from Nob Hill Grocery. You don't have to be in the Nob Hill. It's the only Block Watch group we have left in our community, and we're trying to get more of those going. But this is a really well-run group. They have an agenda and a secretary, and they really go after projects. And our police department has gone over and spoken with them several times and given them tips. It's a good place to learn how to do things if you're so interested in forming a group. So they're going to meet next Tuesday. You know, I'm not sure if anybody wants to go, we can find out exactly where the meeting, for some reason I'm thinking it might be at one of the individuals' houses. Is it?
Jen.
Is it? Okay, so I don't know her address right off the top of my head. So if anybody's interested in going, contact the city or myself or the Nob Hill group, and we'll get you hooked up there. It's a really great informational meeting to go to. And then also I'd like to let everybody know on the 1st of February, that's in 2 Saturdays at 9 a.m. Besh is going to have a book signing. We have a local author here. Her name's Lori Hines. She writes about Southwestern and Native history. She's very interesting, very good books. They're great gifts. So in this holiday season, I had sent some folks that were visitors over there to Besh, and they not only bought some of her books, they were so complimentary on the facility there and said how clean and nice, well kept, how friendly the staff was, how beautiful the ruins were. So everybody that's affiliated with Besh, thank you so much for being a showcase for our city. There's also going to be a Forest Service meeting, which is really of interest to anyone that uses the trails and the roads up into the canals, and they're going to revamp their whole the way they do things, and it would really be a good idea for anybody that's interested in that to go and give some public comment. It'll be on Thursday, February the 6th from 5 to 8, and this meeting here in our county is going to be at High Desert Middle School. They are going to also have one in Payson, and I believe it may be even up in Young. So, but the local one here will be the 6th of February, Thursday, from 5 to 8 at High Desert Middle School. And then everybody probably already knows that Simply Sarah's has already reopened down on South Broad, but what a great shop that is, and we're so glad to have them back in the community again. They were out for a couple year and a half, so they bring a lot of visitors here, and it's a great place to shop. It's very well done. And I believe that is, oh no, I do have a little report about the library. So the library board meeting, I can give you all the statistics, but those are all on the website. You can look. What's really important about the library is that they are so forward-thinking. They have identified such needs in our community, and one of them is job searches, that people are looking for jobs. And so now they twice a month are going to have the lady from the local job, Arizona Works, is going to be at the library twice a month. You can go in, she'll help you if you don't have a resume, she'll help you do a resume. They don't charge to print resumes at the library. They really go out of their way to help our residents. They've also identified a computer class need. There's a lot of folks that need to learn how to, just basic skills. How do you print, or how do you do a resume? How do you open a web browser, what have you. So one of our librarians, Mary Helen Avila, she's going to start these classes. The first one's going to be on Monday the 27th, but the neat thing is it's already full, and the second one is already full. There's a waiting list for the third 6-week course, so we already have 24 people that have taken advantage of this, and it hasn't even started yet. So we need to get the word out for folks to get on that list. That'll really be an asset to our community. And I believe Arizona Works is going to be on the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays from 2 to 4. But you could always contact the library if they change. I also would just like to give a shout out to the Friends of the Library. So there's a lot of events that go on at the library for kids, for adults. There's just everything you can think of. But a lot of these things would not happen without the support of the Friends of the Library and also the United Fund. Both of those entities support our local library, and they couldn't do these programs that they do. They have had over 1,000 people this year. 1,000 people in 2019 attended programs at the library. That's a huge number for a community our size. So thank you very much to the Friends of the Library and the United Fund as well.
Thank you, Shirley. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended the light parade award ceremony that we as council members were invited to. Brandon and Steve were representing the Public Works Department, and they received the award. It was, I think, a $50 gift certificate to La Casita. They wanted to know what to do with it, and I said, take it back to the crew and buy them lunch, you know. So it was nice that we were awarded, I think, Best of Show or Best of Parade or something. And then this morning, I attended the city council with Paul, Vince, Michelle, and who else is that? And myself. We toured the pot farm over here that was kind of a controversial process, you know, when it first started. We talked to Mike and Eli. They walked us around, showed us the place. It was pretty interesting, kind of like what you see on TV, big grow rooms with lights and plants growing. They had just finished their first full harvest, is what he was saying. And I wasn't sure how much he said that was. As far as, I don't even think that. Value? No, in size.
Oh, I don't know.
You know, but most of the building was empty. It was interesting. He said there's 92 grow sites, grow facilities in Arizona, and 80% of them, or 90% of them, are in Maricopa County. They were the last one awarded here in Glow. I remember when it first came up, I was one of the public who questioned it and everything, and Mike and I got to talking, and I told him, I think it's a pretty good deal what you guys have done, that I haven't heard a lot of negative from the community. There was a complaint about odors, but I think they resolved that issue. Pretty interesting, pretty interesting.
They hand out.
I don't want to say any more about it, but it was, no, we didn't even consider doing that, but they had a small crew processing the plant, cutting the buds a little bit, different types of plants, purple ones, yellow ones.
Yeah, I know you tried to jump in there and help.
Yeah, you know, I offered to help. Anyways.
Did they give you any idea of how much money they've put into that facility? Because it's got to be a lot. $2 million dollars.
Yeah, they.
Wow,
put
did
quite
that
a bit of money in
increase
there 'cause it's-
our tax base?
It's totally enclosed, you can't get, you don't smell any odor outside. Inside, there's a sweet smell in the building, it's real sweet smelling, real relaxing. Just be transparent, but very clean, huge. I mean, it's pretty interesting. It'll be good to see as it grows.
No pun
No,
intended.
well, no pun intended. But it's pretty good, and I guess some of you are going next week. I think you'll enjoy it. They were very open. I asked some pretty pointed questions about recreational marijuana and how it was going to affect them and the whole bit. And they explained their process, who they distribute to, and of course they didn't mention anything about the money. We talked a little bit about money, but we didn't talk numbers. Okay, but go, enjoy, check it out. It's been pretty interesting. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Mike. Jesse?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got the opportunity to attend the United Fund annual meeting yesterday, and they were gracious enough to be able to give out three multifaceted grants to different groups in our communities that are combined. So it was their year of yes, and they were able to do that. And I think that's amazing for our community and what it's going to do for the youth in our community, and that just excites me. It's really neat to see. I also want to congratulate Dominion Cutting Company on their expansion and growing. The Chamber's doing a lot more with getting more members involved and seeing a lot bigger turnout now with their ribbon cuttings. And so I just wanted to let you aware of that. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Jesse. Mike?
I just have a few things, Mayor. First of all, I'd like to welcome everybody back from the holidays. Hope everybody had a good Christmas and a safe and happy New Year. It's good to see a nice crowd back here again, and we're excited to have our first meeting at our old chambers in February, correct?
Should be.
First 2 weeks, or second week of February. So thank you for showing up here tonight. And then second, I hosted a meeting at the restaurant with Woody Klein and Kathy Melvin, and I've been working on this issue probably for 5 years now, but we're going to start cleaning up the old cemetery. So we got a lot of people involved in this. We actually, after the meeting, we went up to the cemetery and picked out a location that we're going to start on. And if anybody's been up there lately, or not even lately, it's been a mess. So it's exciting to get this going. And what we're planning on doing, the first cleanup, I believe, is going to be the first weekend of February. We're going to do a Saturday, Sunday cleanup. And then continue on. It's going to take, I'm assuming, a year plus to get the whole thing done. And then we had an idea after we do this, kind of along the same lines as ADOT does on the highway, is adopt a section. So if you want to get involved and, go up there and clean up and be there with us, that'd be great. You can come see me, Woody, or Kathy to sign up. And like I said, we're going to do it on a Saturday and Sunday to start off to see how it goes. So to me, that was super exciting. Lastly, I'd like to, everybody knows what happened New Year's Eve downtown. Please keep Officer Reynolds in your prayers. I'm sure he's going through a lot. He's a young officer. He needs all the prayers that he can get, and along with the victim's family, and the police department. So I'm sure it was handled very professionally, and if you guys need anything, any support from me, please let me know, Chief.
Thank you.
And that's all I have there.
Thank you, Mike. I just have a couple of things. First, I want to encourage, like Fernando said earlier, and I thank you, Fernando, for taking that the lead on that town hall, community pride. Make sure you can make it tomorrow. It'd be very important to get some of these projects downtown. This weekend, Wagon Vineyard opened, had their grand opening, and it was packed in there, it was great. A lot of people there. I think it's gonna be a good venue for our city, gonna do a big drawing for us into the community. They're gonna have a petting zoo and a lot of other things there, so it's gonna be a neat deal for the city. And then also on January 22nd, another new business opened downtown. It's called Bouquets on Broad Street, and that's going to be at, I think it's 5 o'clock, 5:30. You know what it is? 5:30. So if you want to go and see, I don't know the address where she's opening, so I'm not sure.
It's in the old Quick Cool building.
Right next to the trip.
In the old
Okay.
Quick Cool building.
So great. So, and it's Christy Cochran opening that business there. So come and support them. Thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you. A couple things, we're excited about the town hall tomorrow night, 6 o'clock at the train depot. If you haven't seen what's going on inside the city hall chambers, they're gotten the platform framed out, paint's done, it's going well, it's on schedule. I know Richard Thomas was a little worried about making sure that all that happened, but with our partnership with Rodriguez, we're going to get that done and back and ready for you in the first meeting in February. So there's a lot of work getting done and got that over the holidays. We're really thankful to our friends here at the county. You know, sometimes, I think we all got pretty comfortable in the first hour here getting everything set up and everything like that. It's hard to move locations and there's so many things, but with Shelley working with County Mounts and ID Dave, I call him, that was David that was here. Dave Rogers, okay, that's the last name. And so we're really thankful and grateful to them for letting us, come and share their location. So in the biz, we refer that to a medical marijuana growth facility.
Instead of pot farm?
I was on that.
I'm a child of the 60s.
And it is, it's a wonderful facility, very professional, put together well, employs at least 8 full-time people or more when they do the harvesting, they're gearing up. We put that together, council, we did a project with P&Z and then a couple of meetings. They said it would, if they were going to build that facility in Phoenix or in Maricopa County, it would take 2 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it may not even happen. I think Globe is agnostic on the marijuana issue, other than we're pro growth and pro jobs, and that's what that brings. And it's a very professional operation. The next meeting, the group tour, is next Wednesday, January 22nd, at 11 a.m. Sorry, and if anybody didn't make this one and wants to get on that, we can post a notice of a possible forum, and if many of you want to go, we go. But I recommend it. It's very interesting. And by the way, they use a lot of the old bowling alley stuff to decorate some of their workspaces, but they say they got more of that wood left. I think the Tailwaggers or the winery made some tables out of that wood.
Their bar too.
Yeah, their bar.
Yeah.
And they have a comics out there with more of that wood in there, and they said they're willing to give it, donate to anybody that's willing to put it to good use. The only caveat is you have to move it. They said it's heavy, it's very heavy, very dense. Let's see here. The only other thing that was down in Valley today at attending the CAG meeting and was voted as the chair of the CAG management committee. I was vice chair and now I'm chair, so I will be helping Andrea in running those meetings, meeting the city managers in CAG as we give guidance to the regional council. And I think that's all I have for Mr. Mayor, members of council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. We go first call to the community, call to the public. This is a time when any citizen desiring to speak on a matter that is not scheduled on this agenda may do so at this time. Comments will be addressed to the council as a whole public body. Council is prohibited from responding to any comments, but may direct staff to follow up. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. please complete a request to speak card, and we have small sheets and a sign-in sheet on this table over here if you want to speak, and turn it into our clerk. And this is also a time that anybody desiring to speak on a matter that is not on the agenda may do it this time and turn it into the clerk, and we can respond to you when it's on that subject at that time. So I have one speak card. I have Mr. Tim Ralston, mining management from Capstone.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, and Happy New Year, and Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Again, my name is Tim Ralston. I'm the Land Permitting and Regulatory Affairs Manager at Pinto Valley Mine. I wanted to share with you that the Forest Service has progressed through the NEPA process that we're going through for our expansion of the Pinto Valley Mine. The draft environmental impact statement was published on December 13th. It is out for public comment right now. Public comments are still being received through January 27th. There were two public meetings last week, last Tuesday and Wednesday, one in Superior and one in Miami. And we wanted to thank those local representatives that showed up for that. And I also wanted to share with you, it was very meaningful and impactful for us to be able to share with Neil Bosworth, the Forest Supervisor, the 5 resolutions that we received from the local communities, beginning with the City of Globe, but we also subsequently received resolutions in support of our expansion from the town of Miami, the town of Superior, the town of Kearney, and Gila County. So again, it was very rewarding to be able to share those letters of support or resolutions with Neil at that forum. I also wanted to acknowledge Mike Wickersham back here, our general manager, and really just share with you a couple of comments that Mike shared with his workforce and team earlier this week. I think it's really impactful and really gets to some of the things that I've heard here already tonight. This small excerpt reads as follows. On December 13, we saw a new production record of 66,292 tons milled, edging out an old record of 66,231 tons set in May 2017. This record was broken again with 67,061 tons on December 20th, and then eclipsed a third time with an amazing 70,333 tons on December 21st. This outstanding production run also set a new weekly production run record of 444,622 tons. In 45 years of operating history, no team at Pinto Valley Mine has ever achieved these numbers and done it safely. And he concludes with, a safer mine is a more efficient mine, and 2019's results are a good reflection of this principle. Finally, I wanted to mention that I heard some discussion about Globe being in support of growth and jobs, and currently we have 49 hourly positions that we're looking to fill and 9 salary positions. So we are very much interested in connecting with those in the area that are looking for opportunities, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. I'll be here at the end, but if anyone would like to get information about positions, be happy to share those with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. So we have special presentations and ceremonial matters. And first up is Besh Begal will present their City of Globe 11th Department update in 11 minutes.
So, good evening, Mayor and Council. I got picked on first to do the department updates. I don't know that it'll take 11 minutes, but we'll see. So, what I thought I would do is I'll just present a short overview of the museum department, what we do. I'm sure you're aware, but a summary of what took place in 2019 and a brief summation of what we'd like to accomplish in 2020. I didn't do any fancy slideshows. I don't have any cool visuals. So I'm just going to kind of read you a general overview. I gave you all handouts that has all of this information that I'm going to read to you. Please stop me if you have any questions or comments. So, general overview of our department. I'll start with museum staffing. The museum employs 1 full-time manager, myself, and 2 part-time admin assistants. The site has 1 full-time groundskeeper who is an employee of Public Works. He doesn't necessarily report to the museum, he reports to Public Works, but he is on site there. The groundskeeper does have the assistance of 2 Department of Corrections inmates, usually, as kind of a part-time schedule that they work with Public Works. The museum, Beshwagawa Archaeological Park and Museum, serves as an historical, cultural, and educational resource illuminating the Salado people who inhabited the site and the area beginning around 800 years ago. At the museum, visitors can explore the partially reconstructed ruins of the Salado people, view the pottery, stone, and woven artifacts, and view a film that gives the history of the site and the Globe Miami area. Visitors may also explore the Ethnobotanical Garden, which showcases plants used by the Salado, as well as the Lower Botanical Garden. So, the gift shop. A lot of people aren't aware that we have a gift shop. We encourage locals to come shop. We've got some really cool stuff in there. Currently, the gift shop carries nearly 1,600 individual types of items for sale. The gift shop follows a regional focus, with the main themes being the Southwest and Native American culture. You can find books, jewelry, food items, home decor, artwork, souvenirs, and much more. The items vary in price from 35 cents to $300, so there's something for everyone. The museum also manages an aspect of recreation for the city. So I'll kind of give you a little overview of what we do there. The museum department manages the administration aspect of parks and recreation facilities within the community center complex and Knoxbury Hill. This department does not manage the administration of neighborhood parks, like the little park in Euclid and all of that. Those are maintained by Public Works. We don't do any admin for those. Nor the senior park, Veterans Park, which is the park there at City Hall, Round Mountain, or Old Dominion Mine Park. Within the community center complex, there are 8 sports fields, most with field lights, 4 concession stands, 6 electrical outlets, and 3 water spigots, all of which can be rented through the museum. The department manages all of the scheduling and reservations of these facilities, as well as the facilitation of the utilities used. The department currently manages the scheduling and billing of facility use for 8 youth leagues, 3 schools, and 1 adult sports league. The department also facilitates the sale and issuance of permits to consume alcohol within city parks. So those are kind of the things that we cover when it comes to recreation. I figured I would give you an overview of 2019, kind of our sales and some of the projects and goals that we completed. Again, stop me if you have any questions. So in total for 2019, museum, and I'll kind of round off, I'm not going to read you cents. In merchandise sales, we had roughly $59,000 in merchandise sales. In admissions and donations, about $34,000. $18,500 in recreation revenue. And the grand total sales were just shy of $116,000 for 2019. So that's the calendar year, not the budget year. In 2019, the museum received 9,976 visitors. This number only includes paid and tracked admissions and does not capture the number of non-paying visitors, such as gift shop customers, recreation customers, and general inquiries. We also have, oftentimes, people just kind of wander around without ever coming in. So about 10,000 visitors, I would say a little more. Like I said, people come in to just shop, the gift shop. We don't necessarily track those numbers, nor the people coming in requesting recreation. So the gift shop sold 8,153 items in 2019. That's a lot of merchandise for such a small shop. It's not big. Like I said, we have a pretty wide variety, and that's a lot of merchandise that gets moved through there. The museum received 60 public requests for facility and utility use and issued 22 alcohol permits. So that's public requests of people wanting to rent an electrical outlet in the park for a bounce house, or a water spigot, or they want to rent a concession stand, or things of that nature. So 2019, this isn't a total complete list, but these are some of the goals and projects that we were able to complete. We photographed and created an inventory list of all the artifacts housed within the museum. A full inventory did not exist prior to this. So we now have a full photographic documentation of everything that's in there. I plan on putting that on like a little memory stick and giving it to City Hall too, so they have that. Staff completed an artifact labeling project in order for guests to identify the different types and styles of pottery and artifacts on display. So, you know, there's always just the pots and everything that were in there, but there was no specific name tags for what type of pottery that was. Maybe it's a, you know, Gila polychrome, maybe this one's a Tano polychrome, maybe this is a Roosevelt redware. That didn't exist before, so we've got nice little name placards in there. Not for every single individual piece, because that would be too much. So the museum transitioned to a new point of sale system, which we like very much. We created a manager office space. I didn't have a nice space to go work in, so I have one now, which is nice. We did a lot of painting. We painted the gift shop and offices. We did our annual full store inventory. We started a seed saving project using seeds that we harvest from the ethnobotanical garden. So the thought is these seeds can be used for our future garden, and we can share it with our partner institutions like Tonto National Monument, because they started a little garden too. So we conducted several educational field trips for our staff to local sites and points of interest to further their knowledge in order to be more helpful with customer inquiries. People don't just come to the museum and ask about the museum, they want to know where else to go, what's cool to see, what's there when I get there, and some of our staff weren't aware of these certain places, so I drug them all over in my car. We went to Salt River Canyon, and we went to Tonto, we went downtown. It's really helpful so we can convey all of this information to our visitors. The museum completed a structural condition assessment study for the Pueblo Roof Rehab Grant Project and obtained architectural and structural repair drawings and specifications to be used during the rehab construction project. Additional grant funding will be needed to complete the project in full, and so we're actively seeking more grant funding so we can complete this project. We had several events. We hosted the Southwest Kiln Conference, which is an annual event focused on the art, science, and technology of recreating prehistoric pottery of the American Southwest. We hosted a book signing with Lori Hines. She's coming back this year again to do that. We participate in the Smithsonian Institution's Museum Day Live event, where museums from all over the country participate. It's basically a free admission event for museums across the nation, so people can come in. How long am I going for? I don't know how many minutes I'm in. We, of course, hosted our 32nd annual Festival of Lights, and this past event showcased 5,000 luminaries, the most lit for this event ever. It was a lot. The museum hosted 11 school field trips and large group tours throughout the year. And now I'll touch on some of the goals and projects for 2020 that we would like to accomplish. This is by no means a full list, and it will change. And I like to add things. I think of things for the moment, but we want to obtain additional grant funding for the Pueblo Rehab Project. We would like to obtain construction costs and plans for expanding the gift shop into the auditorium just a little bit. As well as the cost to equip the new section with display fixtures and merchandise. We're working on creating a new logo currently to be used for marketing and merchandise. We would like to work with Public Works to create a better recreation signage and reservation posting system. And we also would like to create a maintenance plan for the upkeep and maintenance of the ruins. Something I've wanted to do for a while is install a large mural wall dedicated to Irene Bickery. She was the female archaeologist who headed up the first excavations and the reconstruction of the site in the 1930s. And I don't think she gets enough, she doesn't get enough props for that. So she's actually buried in the Old Cliff Cemetery. So it'd be cool to put a marker there too, so we can tell our visitors. But I think a big mural wall, we have some really cool pictures of her, and like maybe a bio of her would be very fitting. So I'd like to do that.
Where would you put that?
Well, I'd either have to rearrange some of the cases, or there's one wall, I don't know if you're familiar, where we have...
inside.
Yeah, inside in the museum. We've got some wall space that could be nice with some big black and white photos of Irene. We'd like to explore grant opportunities or funding sources for new artifact display cases. I talk about that a lot. And we would like to explore grant opportunities or funding sources to replace the harmful and outdated fluorescent lighting in the museum, which is terrible for the artifacts. So that's kind of it. Do you guys have any comments or thoughts? Anything you'd like to know?
Ready.
Again, I'd just like to congratulate you for all the work that you do, the amount of staff that you have, and the dedication for that entire area with the parks, the museum, the sales, your vision. It's just extraordinary to see that you can put together that much for our community. So thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
It's well done. The
Thank
mesh
you.
is very well done,
Thank
and
you.
I hear that a lot.
We like to hear that. Anybody else?
Yeah, I just want to comment, we appreciate your weekly reports to the council, as we do all departments, so we're, reading those and appreciate those very much. What was the attendance of the Festival Lights, do you know?
So this year we had about 750 people. It was down a little bit from last year. Last year was about 850, but still a really good turnout. Who knows why? I mean, it's about 100, difference, but we had good weather, and really, I mean, we want a lot of people to come, but we don't want too many people to come, because really we can only handle so many people inside that
Well, it was
building.
pretty crowded.
So yeah,
It's 750 people. For that
750 is a pretty good
parking area.
number. Last year with the 850, it got a little tight. So we like to encourage people to come, but there's a fine line. So we were happy with the turnout this year.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you very much. My question?
The artifacts at the museum, those are owned by the city Globe?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for the report.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next, we have a presentation to council on current available parking in the downtown area. Jerry.
Mayor, members of council, I really have a nice PowerPoint for this one.
I imagine you did.
37 pages, right? Slides.
Maybe. But if you go to the printout, which is this, okay, we'll kind of follow along with that. So currently, the public parking lots in the downtown area include Yuma Street parking, Bailey, which is there by the El Ranchito, Bailey parking, which is behind the Huddle, Mesquite parking, which is at 60 Motors, the parking on both sides of City Hall, the Old Dominion parking, which is what we just paved, along with the library parking. And then we have the two gravel parking lots, which is the Pine Street gravel parking lot where the fire department parks a lot of their vehicles, and then also at the teepee at the library. So those are the parking lots that we have in the downtown area. So if you look at the next page, it kind of gives you a really, really neat map that looks really great on the PowerPoint. So
It would be
Yeah.
nice to show it.
show all of the areas that are parked, and then I kind of broke it down and showed you each area with the Yuma Street parking, and then a picture of it after that. So we'll go through it pretty quick. And then the Bailey Street parking with a picture of it after that. And then the 60 Motors or the Mesquite Street parking with a picture of it after that. You notice a lot of these that the businesses that are adjacent to these parking lots use these parking lots. So, yeah, so we'll go on. The City Hall parking, there's a few pictures there. One is the pictures where the staff usually parks at, and then the parking out to the other side where we have some staff park, but we have a lot of people come in. Then there's parking across from the police and fire there along Pine Street as well. And then Old Dominion parking lot is our largest parking lot in the downtown area, and that's just been paved. It's a nice pre-picture of it. So, and then the library parking, which also just was paved. Picture of it.
Question.
Yep.
Is there any reason why the gravel lot next to that wasn't paved?
Because of the expense.
Okay.
Because we don't really know what the city wants to do with that area, and if we are going to create a parking lot for the library, we'll have to put some more money into it, because we'll have to create a base there before we put the asphalt on top. You can't. It's not a resurface. It's a total construction. So it would cost probably 2.5 times what the other costs. But it can be done if that's the direction of the council. So the next one kind of gives you a breakdown of the parking spots in those parking lots, in the paved parking lots. Yuma Street has 8, Bailey Street has 16, Mesquite at 60 Motors has 32, the City Hall parking is 23, there's Old Dominion parking lot has 45, and the parking at the library is 19, for a total of 143. Also, we wanted to refer to the on-street parking as well, which is along Broad Street, Mesquite, Oak, right on down the line. Each one of those within a block of the Broad Street area, and I have those kind of broke down: Broad Street, Pine Street, Hill Street, Mesquite, Cedar, Oak, Sycamore, and Hill Street, for a total of 444 parking spaces, which brings us to 587 parking spaces in the downtown area currently. So what we don't do is utilize the parking spaces very well. And I think my next slide shows an area or signage that we used in the Old Dominion parking lot. What I would propose is to put those in every parking lot. We have small placards up that show that they're city parking lots, but nobody driving by will know that that's a city parking lot. So, and then show directional signs. John and I have talked about directional signs to the parking lots that are off of Broad Street. So we can utilize these parking lots a lot more for the public. Especially during events. John had a good suggestion that we number the parking lots. That way we can pass out flyers during the events where people know where to park and so forth. The parking's there. It's being underutilized, a lot underutilized. We believe that one of the parking lots has semi-parking in it, and we think that should be done away with, and no overnight parking in those parking lots as well, because they're not being able to utilize if we leave trailers and so forth out there. And we need to better utilize the gravel parking lots. If we're interested in parking, as Councilman Pastor said, we need to figure out if that's a priority. Then we will put in the CIP paving for that parking lot and striping and designate it as a parking area for the downtown area. So we need to become better organized in the parking downtown. It's there. I mean, 580 parking spaces in the downtown area is quite a bit. Now, as the businesses grow, I'm always willing to put in for grants to put my 3-story high-rise parking in, which I've talked about there in Old Dominion. So I think Linda's a big fan of that, and with the overhead walkway into the Michelson building. So depends on what you want to pay for. Any questions?
I have a few comments. First off, we need some parking on West Broad, South Broad, North Broad.
North Broad.
Golly, I'm sorry. I'm thinking Phoenix West. Yeah, I had a good chance there. Yeah, the end of Broad, the Yuma Street end of Broad.
There's a small gravel parking lot at Yuma Street.
There is, but it is very small. And also the Bailey Street parking, I really would like to see that on the CIP to get paved, because if that was paved and striped properly, the amount of cars that could be parked there would be phenomenal. The problem now is it's gravel, and it's not striped, and there's people that live in some of those apartments up above on some of the businesses, and they're kind of parking willy-nilly every which way.
No, it is paved. It is paved, and I paved the road down to it.
Well, the road down to it is very nice. The parking lot itself, I wouldn't call that paving, but okay.
Yeah, it has.
It needs resurfaced.
It has an asphalt base, and we thought about
with a lot of gravel and stuff on top of it.
We thought about doing that in the last CDBG. We thought we had enough money, but then we had some overruns on the railroad on Pine. So rather than us come back to council for another $30,000-$40,000, we skipped that one.
But we could put it in this year's CIP.
Yes, absolutely.
And we could also get some signage. There's a lot of, like, us locals know that you can park back there. The people that come to the events downtown don't know. So if we had something on Bailey and Broad that directed them that way, they see the Highway 61 off the highway. They don't realize that it can, that one on Bailey kind of connects. And by the way, that road, the new road to Bailey is very nice, and I've heard a lot of really good comments about that. So I'd really like to see that parking lot included.
That was an area that we were having some safety issues on, so I'm glad we had enough money in the budget to pave that. The parking lot at Bailey is not entirely ours. There are some private parking areas back there as well. So, but there are quite a bit of space there that the city owns that we could make better for parking and stripe better. So,
yeah, that could really help us out a lot.
So I think you're right. That's one of the big areas. On the north end of Broad, there's very limited parking for us right now, except right along Broad Street itself. So there's a small area across from the Drift there on Yuma. That is a gravel parking lot right there that the city owns, but it hasn't been developed. It's right in behind the Humane Society.
It's by the cat rescue, but nobody knows. Really, it's about 3 cars and you could fit there, and the public doesn't know they can park there. They think it's the cat rescue parking. So, but that's not where I'm going. What I'd really like to see is us develop some, like the structure that you're speaking of needs to be on North Broad.
Yeah, there's
land that we could acquire.
There's areas that we could build that type of structure to keep the business, the downtown area in traffic for the businesses. So, I think it's worth pursuing.
It is. It is.
So, especially right across from the Drift. There.
Ready?
Thank you, Mayor. Jerry, I'd like to just say thank you for all the work and research you've done. I know this was a topic of discussion sometime back with council, and we really wanted to know where we were. pleasantly surprised to see that we have that many available now. I really appreciate the thought that you and John put together.
And Richard.
And Richard, okay. You and your staff, how's that? Put together, identifying these and putting out signs and directional signs for the people that do come downtown. Because, you know, for us, we're very lucky that our downtown is starting to thrive, and with the revitalization of some of the buildings, it does get pretty packed at times, and I think it would be really beneficial for those people that come from out of town that don't know. They can quickly just look at these directional signs and know where to go. So
And we have a beautiful downtown area.
Yep.
It's a, you know, it's very noticeable to people that really love that area during the light parade. So,
Right.
So we had a great time looking at it.
Well, again, thank you for all the work.
Anything else?
Question. I know the train depot belongs to the railroad company. Is there any agreement that we could use that parking? Has there been any discussion?
The property belongs to the railroad, but the downtown association has a lease on it. So, and.
Is that available for daytime parking?
So, it is not city parking, so, it is under lease by the downtown association. With an agreement with them, it would be, but we don't have any control over it.
And before, I wanted to clarify one thing with talking with Chief Walters on the overnight parking. I know one of the things we want to try to do is encourage apartments upstairs in the buildings in Broad Street. We have apartments up there. We're not talking about banning any type of people who live on Broad Street from parking their cars and public parking overnight. But somewhere in between there that we don't have, you know, any type of a problem with people, you know, parking there, working out of their cars overnight. So it's something we're going to fine tune. But I didn't want to leave the impression. I mean, I park in public parking overnight on Broad Street, and I know others do too. So.
The city manager?
Well, and it says that on the little employee card, but still, I just don't, I know that it's something we want to fine tune. I don't want the story going out that, you know, we're looking to total ban on overnight parking, but there's a balance in there somewhere. That's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Jerry. We have a consent calendar. Matters listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. Public hearing items are designated with an asterisk. Prior to consideration of the consent agenda, the mayor will ask whether any member of the public wishes to remove a public hearing item for separate consideration. Members of the council and or staff may remove any item for separate consideration. So we have consideration of waiver of section 2-4-10A prior discussion rule to allow action on the balance of the consent agenda. We have accounts payable. I'm sorry, Shelley, I didn't get that number. $1,334,075.10. Thank you, Mike. Consideration of approval of council minutes. October 2nd, 2019 special meeting minutes. October 8, 2019 regular council meeting minutes. Consideration of agreements and purchase less than $25,000. Consideration of latest building permits. We have consideration of the Historic Preservation Advisory Commission recommendations for approval of a mural to be painted on the side wall of the Globe Library. And consideration to approve Arizona liquor license application number 1286090 issued to Jason Z. Pong DBA Jumbo Chinese Restaurant located at 2058 Highway 60. Does anybody from the, you got a comment?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff would ask that we pull the October 8th regular council minutes from the consent. Okay. And that's all we have.
Does anybody from the public, the staff, or the council want to remove any of these items for further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, if there are no other comments or questions, I move that we accept the consent agenda as read and also remove item B, October 8, 2019 regular council meeting minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of consent minus item B. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify. Any opposed, nay. Motion passed. So we'll go to item B, October 8, 2019 regular council meeting minutes.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it was brought to our attention that we had a significant misspelling of Councilman Pastor's name in 8A, the top of the page there. And so we're going to rectify that misspelling. And then we'll, with that, if you can, move to pass this with a correction of the spelling of the council member's name, that would be what our request for passing.
So moved.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on approval of item B. All those in favor signify. Any opposed, nay. Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. We go to new business. Item A is discussion and consideration of a request from representatives of CU Mundy Estates LLC to annex approximately 27 acres located south of the Globe Community Center, APN 102-13-031B and 102-130-028 west into the Globe city limits. Chris.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. We actually have the CU Monday team here, it looks like.
Got a bunch of them here.
Yeah, we have some visual displays, and we have all kinds of stuff. We have kind of a small area to bring everybody up at one time, but maybe I want to do a representative come up and
Whoever you want to designate as your spokesperson.
I'll be that tonight. Okay, I'm sorry.
We want to hear about it.
So, our plan, obviously at the beginning, but we acquired some property and we're planning on developing as many houses as we can. So bringing new construction to the city and really trying to do something special up there. So right now we're literally just through the survey phase. We're kind of at the end of it. Engineering to follow, but we obviously need some help and need some direction from you guys as well as far as if you're willing to help, if you really want us to be a part of it, but that's what our plan is right now, is to develop that area up there.
Josh, can you state your name for the record?
Josh Asanovich.
Charlie?
So for the public, could you please explain the proximity to, I understand it's close to the community center, but
So,
the public doesn't know where it is.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to explain, but on the map, the community center, if you look at it, is literally right over here. So it's going towards the canals if you're standing at the community center. There's a house, Betty Reyes lives here, there's another home here, and then there's a church right over here. I'm not sure, is it Horizon? Is that the Horizon is here? So this is the area here that we're planning on developing, right in the middle.
So it's currently located within Gila County, and
It
you're
is.
asking for it to be annexed into the city of Globe.
Correct. Correct. So,
And Josh, you guys have purchased the land already and everything?
correct, yeah. Yeah, we've owned it for a little bit now. We've done some other stuff up here. I mean, we own a lot of property up here. This is by far one of the biggest projects that we've attempted to undertake. So by no means is everything ironed out. We have a lot of work to do and a lot of money has already been spent up to this point. So our intention is to absolutely take this to the finish line. Now, how that happens and how fast it happens, all up for debate right now. But right now, everything that we have as far as the abilities that at our disposal, we're using. So we, surveyor and Talmadge, he's gonna be doing our engineering. Again, it is something, being that we're in this industry, so we are in the real estate industry, there's a crazy need here. And there's a crazy need of stuff that's appropriate. There's so much falling down. you know, we've bought a lot of these houses and we've actually put in, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars into them to bring them back up. We own a
So
lot
let
of
me
them
ask
now.
you that because that will be of very much interest to a lot of our residents. How many homes have you rehabbed?
Well, we've kept, so we have, how many, like, clear that up, here or just ever?
No, in Globe,
Um,
you're buying old homes and renovating
yeah, I
them,
know.
or
but
homes
we-
in need.
Yeah, and we're keeping a lot of them too. So, I mean, we've sold a couple, but we, I don't know, 10? What have we? 10 in the last 12 months?
That's a high
18
number
months.
for 12 months.
18 months, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So we've kept quite a few of them now. I mean, a lot of it is, again, there's a lot of opportunity in people that need housing. And right now, it's crazy. The community here, what we've seen is a lot of it is a lack of education of ownership. Because a lot of people that go out and they initially reach out to us about rentals, they can buy. They just don't know it. And then the other problem is when they figure out that they can buy, the lack of inventory hurts them there. So that's where we're.
But Josh, how many houses are you looking to put out there?
I knew you were going to ask that. Right now, Tom, we just got the topographical map, and it kind of shows some of the plans. But what we're planning on doing, I mean, right now, our goal is about 80 to 90 homes. If we can go above that with the usable land, we're going to try to do so. But right now, it's still up in the air. We literally, this is the first time we've seen this. So again, that's kind of the next phase, is getting Talmadge to go ahead and start the engineering to figure out exactly how and what we can do. We're going to probably do it in some tiers. There's going to be a lot of affordable housing needs. There is a sweet spot in Globe as far as the amount that people can afford. And then there's an extreme end where people can't even buy the houses that they can afford because there's not enough value to be had here, meaning that they can't find value for financing. So it makes it almost impossible for somebody to go in and, you know, build a 3,500 square foot beautiful custom home. So we're planning on tearing that up, meaning the majority of it is gonna fit in the lower end market, the most affordable end, and go up from there. So we'll have a couple different ways that in my mind it's going to work out. Again, it's in conjunction with what is possible, but right now that's how I see it.
So that was my next question. You answered it, the price range, so you'll have starter homes out there.
Yeah, and again,
young families to
correct.
purchase.
I mean, again, the unfortunate part and the fortunate part of Globe is that the rental markets for investors. So a lot of the reasons why we keep the homes is because the cash flow makes sense. But as a purchaser, right, as a first-time home buyer, there's nothing out there. So making those available in a price that people can pull is going to be huge. You know what I mean? So that's going to be the majority of it. There is a sweet spot. I mean, Shane, what's average right now?
Average price point in Globe right now, we're sitting like 170, 175.
And that 170, 175 is usually a pretty nice house. I mean, we had some that were really nice before we decided to keep them that were $175,000, $180,000. That the same finishes that were in that house were the same finishes that we're putting in houses in Paradise Valley. So, with that said, these aren't going to be that much different. I mean, they're going to be new construction, extremely nice, updated the way that today's world is actually updating real estate. And I think it'll be well received. I mean, the people that do in fact go and see the houses that we've done, they love them. So
I think that averages out to about 3.5 houses per acre, somewhere like that. Four.
Yeah, I mean this first stage, which we're probably about a month or two from finishing, will be preliminary engineering, and it'll be trying to identify how many houses we can get in this area because there's a lot of topography like all the Globe.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, again, this is all preliminary, but the minimum lot size for built inside the city limits is 5,000, right? 5,000 square feet. So basically just using that data, like, again, we plan to increase the size of the lot with the size of the home. So the majority of them are going to be sitting on that size of lot, give or take, so 5,000 to 7,000 square feet. But as we scale up the mountain, because it's kind of elevated, so as we scale up to the top, the views become more pronounced. the lots can get bigger, the houses can be a little bit bigger, they can follow. So, thank you.
Fernando?
How close is infrastructure as far as sewer? Are you going to be able to hook up to sewer? Because I imagine that would affect your ability to develop the lots.
That's one of these questions. Yeah, sewer would need to be extended off-site. So water is available.
By how far? Sewer by how far?
It's right next to the community center. What did we?
I think 2,000, 2,500.
Was it that much?
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact
There
number.
was two locations. It was
Yeah.
roughly 2,000 feet or so.
That will also be covered in this preliminary engineering stage. It'll be, part of it will just be providing Josh a cost estimate, like, okay, here's how much it is gonna cost to do, you know, extend sewer and things like that. He's gotta know if he's able to do that based off all these factors.
And
So
the line has the capacity to handle the extra load, I would imagine?
Again, right now, it's super preliminary. I mean, the fact that we even know where it's at is kind of where we're at. So trying to figure out all the logistics of what it's going to be able to handle, that obviously is to come.
Okay.
But again, that's where we sit. So we're trying to figure out if it's feasible, if it actually.
Most likely, it's at the beginning of the line, and so it's a 6 or 8 inch line. I can't remember which one, but there's not a lot already going to it. It's not like it's maxed out. It's at the end of the line, and we're coming into it.
Freddie?
So you are communicating with our staff, city staff, regarding?
We have to.
Okay, good, because I think, obviously, those negotiations, or those conversations need to take place.
Okay.
So that the city knows what we can anticipate as far as the sewer, water. It looks like, Jerry, maybe this is a question for Jerry, is this our water district or the district, the water district, and I can't remember the name. Canyon Water District.
Yeah, we have, it's our water that would be closest to this area.
Oh, okay.
And our sewer is just below the community center. So we would connect, there's a couple different ways to connect to that. So it depends on what area they develop first.
Right.
But city staff is very supportive of this. So.
Good to hear. Well, as you know, this council has been very proactive about housing as well. So, me personally, this has a lot of interest in my mind, and I hope it can work out. I really do.
We do too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Oh, I just had a question about the sewer, so, because somebody's gonna ask me this, so give me the answer. And I am as well, in very much in support of this, but there are going to be residents that want to know the question of sewer at a couple $100 a lineal foot. Who's paying for 2,000 feet of, that's a couple $100,000.
Yeah. So again, we don't.
And I will, Ms. Mayor and Council, I'll address that in part of my presentation.
Okay. Okay.
Fernando?
So on annexation, I assume that you butt up next to city limits, right? Because that's a requirement in order for us to annex?
Really on multiple sides, yeah, it's kind of a whole, I mean, the city limits come around it on 3 sides of it.
Okay, good.
Length, width, the dimensions.
So yeah, I mean, I'm sure they'll talk about it, but we actually looked into that to make sure that we were good with that. So it literally meets every bit of criteria to be annexed. So, anything else?
Question. This is currently county property? This place?
Yes.
And you didn't propose this to the county, you just come to the city?
Propose what to?
This development?
Not
to the county?
No.
That's something we can address.
Are you the Josh Hasanovich that I think you are?
I'm the one and only Josh Hasanovich. It depends on what you're thinking, but yeah.
I was coaching junior high. When you were at the junior high,
You were coaching above me, varsity, at my freshman year. Correct. You did. You also made me run for about an hour and 15 minutes straight. I did miss a practice to go golfing. I was very upset. I can't remember what happened. My home life wasn't very stable, but I went golfing, And when I came back, you made me run for about an hour and 15 minutes during batting practice. But, you know, yeah. After that, it was good. I started here. I started out, and that's what we discussed. I started in this town. I sweated in these streets. I bled in these streets. A lot of my family has. I left immediately, as soon as I possibly could. I left here from literally being homeless to getting an opportunity to go down to the valley to play baseball my freshman year. I came back because I was absolutely overwhelmed and under equipped to handle the schooling, the demand that was down there. I left there after that again, and I went down, so I played varsity baseball here. I walked on down there. They obviously knew me because I left before, but I played varsity baseball my sophomore year there, and I went on to be a Gatorade Player of the Year in Arizona, played at Arizona State, and ended up playing better part of a decade professionally. And then came back, wanted nothing to do with Globe, and just keeps getting drawn back into this town. Truth be told, like, we have a kinship with the city here and in Miami. And a lot of it, as a matter of fact, I've reached out and I was talking to somebody about some outreach as far as the education of the youth, because a lot of it, my background didn't give many hopes. Like the fact that I was athletically blessed a little bit more than others was a blessing for me, and it was an opportunity for me to go and see what the world actually had. And that was not only just an education, but that was paid for. I never paid a dime for education. I didn't get a degree as far as a 4-year degree. I left my junior year, and there's specific reasons for that. But again, I was drafted out of high school 3 years after I played here. There's not many people that have done that. There's some people that have come from Globe and done that. Not many people have gone on. The other gentleman that was with me, Matt Pagnazzi, is from here as well. I mean, we played with Mayor Guimeros' kid all the way coming up. So my point is there's a lot of stuff that the city does have to offer. A lot of stuff that people don't understand. The businesses that are here, the outreach that is happening now is important. It can't be stopped. And that's the thing. We have a city town, like a downtown area that's dying, and then it comes back. And then it dies, and then it comes back. And it dies, and it comes back. And a lot of it is the city itself. Like, it has to be supported. And there's things now that, you know, with the economy the way it is, with the mines here, and so people do have money. They're leaving here, though, because there's not a lot available. And that's not even just including the housing that we're talking about. It's including the buildings. We've actually tried to go after some of the buildings. Like, I wanted to put a crazy ice cream shop up here. And it wasn't, a lot of it is because there's not that stuff here. So, I mean, it's crazy. The gentleman that just opened the gym, I didn't even know it, but he's my son's soccer coach. He's not from here. But people are coming back, people are doing stuff, and it has to be recognized, and it has to continue. The stuff that we're talking about, you guys are talking about parking. You're talking about the apartments above these buildings. Like, there's amazing opportunities down there. We actually went after one, and I had this grand plan to do this ridiculously designed loft-style Chicago thing up there that was going to be beautiful. In my mind, it was going to be gorgeous. My buddy was already moving into it, my business partner, okay? But the thing is we couldn't come to an agreement. But a lot of people aren't giving that possession, which is understandable. But the thing is if that's the case, like, then let's assist them. Let's be a part of it. And that's a lot of the reason why we're looking at this. And I know that there's been other talks from people about developing land, and there's just not enough. And so if we can do it, again, this is a big deal for us. If we can do it, we'd be honored to give it a run. So.
Well, welcome back to Globe.
Yeah, appreciate it.
I just wanted to thank you for taking the time and opportunity to see that and invest in this community.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I just got a comment, Josh. I know your sister Andrea, you guys, your vision and your passion to make this happen, and I'm glad you're back. We grew up in the same street, Red Springs in Miami, so you know, so it's. And
it's not, like I said. I mean, it's funny. We come back and we see these. I drive around here a lot. I see the kids. Like, I see them. We were just talking about it today. We had 4 kids running around with the city comp. And we're laughing. It's like, dude, that was me. That was who it was. It's crazy because it's home. So, you know, I don't know. It's weird, but we appreciate the opportunity.
And we're pushing economic development. Part of it is our housing, and we're moving forward full speed ahead. And we'd be honored to have that if we could get it annexed into the city and work with the city and get that housing development done. We're really on board with it.
Awesome.
Really appreciate it. Fernando.
So I notice your lot line here. It looks like it's set up to have additional access down to the road here. I think that's Ice House. Is that?
Yeah. We're looking into the access points. That's one we're considering. But the land kind of just came as it was.
Okay.
I don't know if that was a plan previously.
Are you talking about the far left?
The two
piece?
little arms that come out that
Yeah.
it looks like it give you access to that.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest,
Like this piece here basically runs up the middle of like a gully, okay, like a wash that runs down. Not ideal. I don't think we're going to be able to do anything with it. This piece here, there is an opportunity for us to potentially bridge something here and make it come in. But again, we're looking at different ways in. I think that we have a better solution for that, and we should have multiple access points to come into that area. But I do think we have a better solution for that up in this area here. The existing house that's there right now, we're not exactly sure what our plans are. I mean, it's literally a brand new house. It just hasn't been finished. So again, we don't. That's what this piece is here. It's like an acre, a really skinny piece. So we're probably not going to leave that. So that's why I'm saying, in some way, shape, or form, the access can be up on this side.
Okay.
Anything else?
So you're rehabbing already existing homes, you're gonna build quite a few new ones and bring all this benefit to the city. Let's start this annexation process, is my input.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
All right.
Paul's turn now. Where do we go from here?
Well, and that's the
where do
goal
we
here.
go from here?
No, this is very exciting. We don't need to talk about how important workforce housing and spec housing. It would be wonderful, as every other town, to somebody come here and be able to go shopping between used and rentals and new spec homes that are built. Just go in the sales center and pick it out. I think Chris passed this out right before the meeting. It's got 2 slides, annexation process and city goals and annexation. I'm going to start, and I'm sorry we can't put this up on the screen. I'm going to start with the annexation process. We have received a request from the landowner. In some annexations, they're more complicated with multiple landowners, but this one's easy. It's 2 parcels, one owner. We have the confirmation of the property qualifies. The 300-foot contiguous length times width, and is not narrower than 200 feet in any one location. So we're good there. Now we're at the 3rd bullet, direction from council. And to Councilman Pastor's question, we wouldn't go to the county to even talk about this if we didn't have direction from the city, make sure that we don't want to get out in front of that. And so this does involve the county, but everything I know about this is they process it, but there's not approval based on that. We don't need a vote from the county to let this happen. So the property owner has that right to go into the city if they choose. So preparation of the annexation petition. It's a complicated process. Chris has been working on that. After we get direction from council, we'll file the petition with the county. We'll do a 30-day notification, and this is a very simplified version of a very long set of standards about when you advertise, when you public, when you have the meeting, things like that. I'm trying to just get it into a bite-sized piece here. Collection of petition signatures. That usually is the toughest part. If you're doing an annexation, you take an area, some people are for it, some people may not be. This is very simple. You have one property owner and we walk over, we sign. But you actually have a year to do the collection of signatures if you need to educate and get people on board. then adoption by council of a process plan and procedure document. And that'll be our explanation of how we're going to meet. We are required to give equal to or greater, equal to services that the county now gives this area. Since we're annexing raw land, you know, the sheriff serves it. If there's something happens, our police would have to be able to serve it as raw land. We partner with Tri-City. You know, there's really no public works requirement now. So that's not a problem in our ability to serve the land as it's annexed. And then adoption by council of the annexation ordinance, and then we have this land that would expand into our city. And I do believe we have the conversation that it would be in Councilman Pastor's district. As we look, yeah, we'd have to check that out, but I do believe it. That's who would get that. Now, it wouldn't change anything until it was populated, and then we'd have to worry about, you know, if it throws off, if there's any redistricting needed by council. So then on the second page, Councilman Shipley, any questions? I know you're very familiar with the annexation process, but I know that you've seen how these can go well and sometimes not so well. This one's pretty clean, at least in meeting the requirements. So going to city goals and annexation. Annexation is a precursor to development. You have development on current land, but if we can grow the city in the process of that, they have come to us. They want to build houses. They want the city to provide those services, and that's a good partnership. City has a legal requirement, like I said, to provide services equal to that of the county, fire, police infrastructure. That is not going to be hard. Even if when it gets fully developed, we'll have to take that into account as we budget and make sure we can cover with police and fire, and eventually streets will be donated to us, and we'll have to take those over. But we'll lay that out in the document when we come back for the final annexation. The property owner is responsible for the cost of infrastructure improvements, power, water, sewer, streets. And that is the property owner. If you're going to develop and build and make profit out of something, those utilities need to be borne by the owner of the property. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't find ways to help support that. The give clause says that we can't give public funds to a private entity. The City North case that was decided in Phoenix, I think 2011, 2012, the ruling from the Arizona Supreme Court says that we can give credit for benefit when there's a direct return to the city. So a direct return to the city is if we do X, we'll get Y in the way of sewer revenue funds, in way of additional, if we run a sewer line and we can connect the community center to it and we can benefit from it, then we'll get that and we can credit that. The secondary benefit would be like if we build these houses, people will live here and they might go shopping at Fry's and Safeway, and they'll feed into our tax base. That is, the courts look down on that secondary tax benefit as comping that to justify direct spending by the city. In support of the development, the city may do, and this is not a comprehensive list, this is what we've been talking about generally, negotiate development agreements to reduce or defer city fees. There's lots of costs in there, and we can work that out in the way of to make sure that we're not, and so I'm going to back up just a smidge. There's a cost to building a house, there's a price point that they need to sell the house, and there's a gap in between there. Anything we can do to reduce that cost is going to allow their gap to maintain, and that we hit that price point. So we're not business partners, but we're partners in having the same goals of wanting to get that price point so that it's feasible. If it doesn't pencil out, you're not going to build houses that you're going to lose money in every time you sell them. And so that has to happen. So we know that they need to hit their price point, they need to hit their profit margins, they need to be able to reinvest, cover their costs. we will do everything we can legally to help do that. So if we can help defer things to an agreement, legal agreement where both sides sign, we'll look at that. We can subsidize on and off-site utility infrastructure costs equal to the value of the direct benefit. This is where there'll be a cost to pull sewer to that property. There'll be a small cost to get the water to the property. There'll be costs to lay main lines once it's designed, into the property. If we can look at the direct benefits and calculate that, when you have 80 homes hooked up to our water and sewer plant, we're going to get some fees off of that, and then that is a direct benefit. If there's other things that we can hook up to that because of there's direct benefit. If we can get public works on in certain areas in the community center on sewer, that's a direct benefit. There's many ways we can work to get that figured out, and we can use that to offset those costs. Seek third-party funding providers. There's other ways that both public and private that we can find additional partners to bring in. USDA is the most obvious, but there's other grants, there's other private funds that we're talking about and looking at, and so we're going to try to seek those out too. And then a development agreement to defer utility costs until sale of the home. It's not a gift, but one of the problems in doing development like this is that big lump sum you gotta sink into the infrastructure before you go vertical. I mean, you're just getting the site work done. You're trying to get the streets, the curbs laid, the streets laid, get main lines in there before you can even start laying concrete and framing a building. If we can defer that cost and tie that cost through an agreement for when every home sale is made, that price that the money put in the city is repaid back to the city on the sale of the home, that deferred cost will help allow them to not have to have so much development capital. It still adds into the cost of the home, but there are ways we can do that. And then we haven't even talked about some special districts and things like that. I didn't get those on there. So we're at the very beginning. They're ready to move on the annexation. We have talked to them in meetings about everything I've talked to you about here. This is something that the city can do for anyone who wants to come and try to build houses in our community. So this is not just for them. This is things that we can do legally within the confines of law, confines of gift laws, confines of the City North case to support home development in Globe.
The other benefit the city would have too would be population and shared revenues, the increase in population.
Oh yeah, no, and state shared revenues would come in and up our count. Eventually census would get counted on the updates because they do update it. So no, that's a benefit too.
Fernando?
I have a question regarding zoning, because it's vacant land now, so I'm not sure what it would be zoned. We would have to address zoning so that it could turn it into residential, is that correct?
Yeah, I believe I asked Adria what the zoning was, what the current zoning on that, and I believe it's R15, it's residential, 5,000 square foot lots.
Okay.
Okay, so we're excited, and we're working, partnering. This is to be a long haul, but we're how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? And this ties into our housing study that was on the agenda tonight. I know that Linda will talk about that too. Linda on her end, myself, we're constantly talking on how we can not just be a bystander, but do what we can to help bring what the city needs, which is workforce housing and just spec housing. So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, what we would ask is a motion to direct staff to move forward with the annexation. I can't remember how I wrote the motion. I don't have it.
So moved as presented.
Second.
And we need to waive the rules, it's new business.
No, because this will come back.
This will come back.
This will come back, so no, okay, waive the rules. Okay.
I have one question. What's the timeline for all this?
What would you calculate out the timeline? It's pretty quick, please.
Okay, right now, we would file a blank application and a boundary map, and then a 30-day clock starts. And 6 days before the end of that 30 days, everybody gets notified at the beginning and notified of the public hearing 6 days prior to the 30 days ending. After that, then the collection of signatures, which technically we already have, and then
It's only one signature.
there's two parcels, so there's
One person, two sides.
So, yeah, probably looking just on the annexation end, 60 days.
And then if everything's approved, what's your timeline for the project, Josh?
Well, we still have to go through engineering, we still have a lot of preliminary, like workups that need to be done. And, we can update you as we go, but there's a lot of stuff that we need to figure out logistically how that's gonna work. So to give you a timeline right now, it would be a complete guess, and we'd be only responsible to do so.
I'll just ask that question.
Yeah, let's keep that. I'll have better answers, less vague as we move along.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, the communication has been great. The city's goal is to not be the lagger on this. We're going to stay out in front of this. They're willing to go and do the annexation, so we'll get that done, and we'll be communicating. And our goal is that they're not waiting on us; that we'll be waiting on them. They have the heavy lift, and so we'll be there when they need it.
So we do have a motion and a second to start the process of annexation. Do we have any further discussion then? All those in favor signify.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Next, we have discussion and consideration to approve resolution number 1801, authorizing the investment of the city monies into local government investment pools. And Shelley, can you read resolution 1801?
Resolution number 1801, a resolution of the mayor and council of the city of Globe, county of Gila, state of Arizona, authorizing the investment of city monies in the local government investment pool. Council, please do the reading.
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So staff has been researching available options to invest city funds and at the same time have access to them if necessary. What we found is one of the many services that the Arizona State Treasurer's Office provides is the ability to participate in the LGIP, Local Government Investment Pool. The LGIP is structured to provide participants safety of principal, daily liquidity, followed by investment income in that order. Monthly LGIP performance is reviewed by the Board of Investment, and detailed reports are available. For years, the city, and I don't know how long, because it's been ever since I've been here, the city has invested monies in the LGIP Pool 5, which is a diversified short-term fund similar to a prime money market fund. Over the course of the past 3 years, with market fluctuation, the city has received a total yield of approximately $222,000 on $3,500,000 investment. The investment yield just rolls back into the investment amount each year, and it just keeps piling up the interest. In order to access the accounts online and possibly invest more funds in the pool to get more of a yield, we have to pass a resolution because what the State Treasurer's Office has on file is old and outdated, so they're requiring a new one. I had contacted them to find how can I just access the accounts online like I do with the bank accounts. So in researching the LGIP options, the investment accounting manager that I've been working with at the Arizona State Treasurer's Office advised me that we need to update through a resolution the names of staff that are authorized to access the current account and set up any new accounts. The current LGIP pool that the City of Globe is a participant in is pool number 5. This pool is for liquid cash equivalent needs of public entities. Fund accessibility is available within a 24-hour notice, and the average investment yield for the last 6 months is around 2.08%. Any questions?
Jeannie, on the short-term funds that we've invested, when are they tied up in there as they are now? We can't access them when they're
No, we can,
collecting
in the
interest
pool
on
number
them?
5, we can access them
We can
within a
access them.
24-hour notice.
Fernando?
The funds are not without risk though, because I noticed that there's commercial bonds in there, and so they can lose value, but I was looking that they have not lost value. They've always consistently gone up.
Yeah, it seemed to, but recently it seemed to, yeah, in July of 2019, oh, that's the wrong one. Let me get the right pool I'm looking at. Yeah, July of 2019, the rate was at 2.43, and as of December, it's down to 1.79. But
it's still positive. It's
It
not
is.
negative. It's not like mutual funds or
Yeah.
other investments where you can go actually lose value.
And that's where I got the 2.08 average over 6 months. You know, it depends on, of course, what the feds do. But it seems pretty safe.
How much is in the fund right now? Do you have any idea?
3,700,000 and some thousand.
So the interest rolls back into the principal?
It does.
that we invested.
It does.
I misspoke a little bit on that. I thought I could spend it.
Just checking. It's a lot of money there.
So we're not really changing our investment strategy. All we're doing is updating the resolution.
Yeah.
Yes, so I can access the account.
You're not adding more to it. Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion.
Depositing more? That is the idea, yes. Yes, we would like to. We have been looking at that.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, but how much more would you be looking at depositing?
2 million.
2 million more?
Jeannie, is there a time limit on it? Do we need to waive the rules, or is it, because this is new, first read, do we need to waive the rules to motion this today?
Oh, I didn't cover that part, did I?
It would be beneficial.
It would, yeah, the sooner we could have access and.
I would move to approve the resolution.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a, you want to go?
I already made
Sorry, I jumped on you.
I'd move to approve the resolution and waive the rules so we can do so today.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of the resolution. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion passed. Thank you, Jeannie. Next, we have discussion and consideration to possibly adopt the federal and state updates to the Globe Fire Department Policy Manual supported by Lexi Poole, Chief Robinson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. One of the challenges that we always have as a public safety entity is to maintain a current, accurate, up-to-date policy manual. I know any public safety entity struggles with this. I've had conversations with Chief Walters. They've previously used Lexapol to do this and are working to update, I believe, on theirs. And I've spoken with a few other entities that have used Lexapol to do that. The service that Lexapol provides is they provide a policy manual that is reviewed legally for compliance with federal regulations, state regulations, and best practices that we can then add, subtract from very easily, as well as modify to fit our organization and what we do. Over the course of the last while, we've been working on this to bring their policy manual in line with what fits with the City of Globe and the mission that we carry out. In order to do that, we've had reviews by Captain Bracamonte of the investigations portion, by myself as far as administrative, by Captain Chief Bayerano, with EMS, the EMS related portions, to make sure that we provide something that not only our people can understand, but that complies with those regulations that will do that. And then will allow us to keep that current, because every year, normally they put out updates to those policy manuals as best practices change, as federal regulations change, or state regulations change, that allow us to then review and adopt those policies into our manual. This policy manual covers approximately 100 different topics related to everything from our respiratory protection program down to how we deal with records, and so on, that make sure that we're complying with the things that we need to comply with. Those, if I'm not mistaken, as the police department went through this process initially, one of the things that they looked at was how do we keep that updated, and there was some work that went with council with that to allow for minor modifications to be made within administratively, while any significant additions or modifications to the policy manual were incorporated into a presentation or to advise, where council received notification of those and had the approval for those. The manual at this point is prepared and ready, and we believe that it will meet the needs of our department. One of the other things that goes with that is Lexipol provides daily training. So every time our personnel come in and report for duty, we can require them to train on some aspect of our policy manual. So not only do we don't just put out a 400-page policy manual and expect them to read it, we also provide them opportunities to, on a regular basis, delve into a topic within that policy manual and make sure that they understand what is going on, what we're asking of them, what's expected of them by state regulations, federal regulations, and so forth. What we're asking to do would be to move this forward for any discussion and approval at a later date, so that we can then enroll this policy manual, implement it, and begin training our personnel to make sure we get up to speed on it.
Chief, what is the required hourly training for each individual on a monthly or annual basis?
On an average basis, our goal is to meet around 200 hours of training annually for our personnel. That's in fire, EMS, in technical rescue, a number of different topics that we're trying to keep current with. It's a pretty tremendous load when you look at it, to meet that number of hours and keep people current.
That would be per staff, correct? Per staffer?
That would be 200 per staff member that we're trying to.
That also affects your ISO rating that you need to meet requirements, minimal training for.
It can.
So it's pretty substantial.
Yeah, it's 5 weeks.
One of the things we found with our last ISO review was that we had improved the score we got on as far as the classroom learning, as far as that, we've improved with the system that we're using. We're working now to implement a program that increases the number of hands-on hours that our personnel are getting as well, to make sure that we stay current. In addition, we're always working on EMS. The reality of the world that we live in as far as fire rescue goes is we spend about 90% of our time doing medical stuff, and we train our people very well. We should have a new paramedic. Hopefully in the next month we'll have that individual up and ready to go. They've been very successful. They've been very dedicated as far as classroom goes, but we've had that person with a mentor for the entire time they've been in the program, and they've been challenged with some of the calls that they've had to run, but have been very successful. We feel we get a very good return on investment with the education that he's obtained for the effort that he's put into it as
Well, the lower the ISO rating, the better the rate for all of our residents, insurance rates and everything that goes along with that.
Freddie, did you have a question?
Yeah, I may have missed it, Chief, but I remember the Lexington pole that the police department was working on years back. I don't see any associated costs with this. Is there?
There is an associated cost. You know, one of the things we looked at was in order to stay current, there's an amount of research, an amount of investment in man hours that would have to go to that to not only develop, to write, to legally to maintain legal reviews in terms of policies that would be generated and stuff. You know, we try to balance that out in how many hours we have to invest in man hours to try and do that and still get a good return for what we're doing, and it's very challenging. You know, I know departments that have invested a lot of man hours in trying to do that, not just develop it, but keep it current. Tri-City went through a long process with a consultant to develop theirs. This comes, I don't want to say ready-made, because there's a lot of investment. They do a lot of the front work to put out a product that then we can then adapt to meet our needs.
This is already a budgeted item, though.
It is already a budgeted item.
Question. Now, is this a supplement to the internal fire department policy manual, or?
This would replace the current fire department where we identified a lot of gaps, just, you know, not necessarily in what we were doing, but in defining why we were doing what we were doing. A good example is our respiratory protection policy. You know, since I've been here, we've had a very active respiratory protection program where we're maintaining our SCBA's the way we're supposed to for our breathing air within in-house. We didn't have a document in place that defined why we did what we did outside of relying on the federal regulations.
Mr. Mayor, if there are no other questions or comments, I recommend that we move this forward to the next available meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to move forward this agenda item. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion passed. Thank you, Chief. Next, we have discussion and consideration of resolution number 1803 to implement an administrative policy for the use of highway user fund and Gila County excise tax revenue and request to waive the rule 2-4-10 prior discussion rule. Shelley, can you read resolution 1803, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Resolution number 1803, a resolution of the mayor and council of the city of Globe, Arizona, setting policy on expenditure of highway user revenue and Gila County excise tax revenue. Council, please agree.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, members of council. So, every year we receive funding from the half-cent excise tax from Gila County. Last year we also received an audit from the Attorney General's office, and they loved everything we did with the money, except we didn't have a policy and procedure in place. That was a requirement. Last week, Jeannie and Paul and I went down to the Senate Appropriations Committee, and Paul gave testimony to the committee that we had this already drafted and was going before council tonight to ask that it be approved. Basically, it says that we, if you read through the policy, we can only spend the money on highway-related projects or expenditures, and the same thing with the HERF money. The difference between the two funds is the half-cent excise tax. You can actually push that from one year to the next and build up a fund balance on that, where the HERF funds, you need to expend that every year. So tonight, we're asking that you waive the rules on this so we can send a copy of it to the Senate Appropriations Committee and also the Attorney General's office to show them that we have complied with everything that required of the City of Globe. You want to add anything? Okay.
And so how many tons of asphalt does that equal? How many dump truckloads of asphalt now do we?
So we received about $500,000 last year, $400,000 worth of money that we use strictly on preventive maintenance, which is either seal coat or a surface coating. And you know, we've been able to turn quite a few roads black, and this is one of the reasons why.
So we need more. So I move as presented with to waive the rules as well.
Thank you.
And gather up some more of that asphalt.
It'd be nice to get a 2 cent instead of ½ cent.
I'll second it.
I have one question.
Do we have a second on that one?
I second.
Did you? Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 1803, and we'll open it up for discussion.
So if we buy a piece of equipment using HERF funds, are we able, and we're not doing a road project, but if we have something that we need to use that equipment for, other than, say we go out and build a dog park, can we use that tractor to go up and do that, or?
So HERF and ½ cent excise tax expenditures are solely for highways. We might build a road into the dog park.
And pave it with asphalt.
You know, I'm telling you from the policy, it's only for highway or street related expenditures.
So, Mr. Mayor, Members of Council, Jerry, but some things that we proportion, we percentage.
Yeah, we in fact, some of our salaries and so forth are, a portion of it is charged to HERF and some of it is charged to general fund, and some of it even maybe for the same person is charged to one of our enterprise funds. We are a lot better than we were a few years ago, accountability on our machinery and equipment and our personnel records on what fund we can charge things to. And we do not want to get stung in an audit, so we're very careful about where we spend.
So when we construction project.
And we're very careful, as Charlene says, we turn it black.
There you go.
And Mr. Mayor, Members of Council, the audit that took place was what they call a sunset audit every 8 years on these types of things. The departments and these, they do this audit just to check in on it. So it wasn't triggered by anything.
So in fact, they photographed some of the key projects that were done with this ½ cent excise tax, and the Globe projects were them. So we got big time pats on the back, right, Jeannie, on everything we did, except we didn't have a policy in place, and that's what this does. And because of all we were supposed to have it by the first of the year, but because of all the meetings that were adjusted and so forth, we're asking that you waive the rules so we get it in place tonight.
And Mr. Mayor, Members of Council, Jeannie corrected me, it's a 5-year audit. The last time this was audited, we were not receiving these funds. This is the first time for us, because we've now changing the law. It's a 5-year, not 8-year audit.
Any further discussion? To the question, all those in favor signify.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you, Jerry. Next, we have discussion and consideration to approve resolution 1802, thereby adding the civil restoration permit fees to the city fee schedule. Shelley, can you read resolution 1802?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Resolution number 1802, a resolution of the Mayor and Council of the City of Globe, Arizona, adopting a 2020 revised general fee schedule for the City of Globe to include civil restoration permit fees. Council, please with the reading.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Freddie?
We'll need to step down off this one as well.
Okay. Freddie will be recusing himself.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, this resolution will add the civil restoration fees which are connected to the no cut policy to our existing fee schedule. Nothing else in the fee schedule changed, we're just adding the fees, the no cut fees, and I'm trying to find. Yeah, the minimum fee would be $300, and then the permit fee is a calculation on the square foot of the dimensions, times 50 cents.
Because of the schedule, we don't want to waive the rules on this one. We have to follow the time frame.
Right.
So moved.
Just.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to move this resolution 18024 to the next meeting or next time frame. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion passed. Thank you, Shelley. Next, we go to action items. We have consideration of ordinance 861, an ordinance limiting license agreement holders in the number of parking lots that can be used in city parking lots.
Ordinance number 861, an ordinance of the City of Globe, Arizona, amending the Globe City Code by amending section 8-4-1 to include vendors with license agreements to use city public parking lots and restrict the number of license agreement holders allowed at any one city parking lot by adding section 8-4-1C-1, license agreement holders parking restrictions. Is council please adopt?
Well, good evening again, Mayor and Council. As we heard earlier, Trey Barnes's wonderful PowerPoint presentation on parking lots. We're limited. We have a limit on this, but we also want to encourage business. And we'd like to allow some people to become a license agreement holder and utilize part of these parking lots, but we don't want too much of this at any one time, especially at any one parking lot at one time. So we've increased the number of parking lots in the ordinance, and limited the number of vendors using these lots at any particular time. So is there any additional questions on this?
Yeah, just for any new attendees, that this will limit any of our designated city parking lots to 20% of usage for vendors at any given time.
Yeah, with the exception of special events.
Special events, yes.
So I have a comment.
Go ahead, Jerry.
So what I really appreciate is that the staff went to the extent of defining the parameters of what these vendors could. They have to be licensed, they have to have a business license, they have to show proof of insurance, they have to take a timed picture so they can prove that they were the first one. If 6 come and only 3 vendors are allowed, what do we do about that? So I appreciate all the steps, because this really is a concern for the downtown district. It really is, for the businesses that are existing. So I appreciate that all that work was done, and I think this is you came up with a good ordinance.
Well, thank you.
Any comment, Cliff?
Motion to approve ordinance number 861.
Second.
A motion and a second for approval of ordinance 861. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have consideration of possible approval of executing the Municipal Power Exchange MPX amendment. Jeannie.
Good evening again. So this is the second read on the Municipal Power Exchange Amendment to the Arizona Power Authority contract. At the December 17th meeting, Kelly Irvine from Current Insight came and gave a presentation and explained the program to you all. So this is the second read to see if you wish to approve it.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the municipal exchange amendment. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstaining? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have discussion and possible approval of the Arizona Mutual Aid Compact Agreement to allow Globe Police Department and the Globe Fire Department as departments within the City of Globe, a political subdivision, to participate within the Arizona Department of Emergency and Military Affairs in the event of an emergency. Sergeant Haynes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The last meeting that we attended, we discussed this mutual aid compact and requested approval to participate in that compact. It does a number of things for us. It allows us to request assistance from other jurisdictions that participate. It also brings us into compliance with NIMS, the National Incident Management System, which affords us the opportunity to apply for various grants. So we're just requesting approval of that Arizona Mutual Aid Compact.
No questions. Questions, comments?
No comments, no questions. I motion that we approve the Arizona Mutual Aid Compact and move forward with the next, well, this is an action item, not a vote.
Yes, it is.
Okay, that we approve the Mutual Aid Compact with the police department as, I'm sorry, as stated.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstaining? Motion passed. Thank you, Chuck. Next, we have consideration and possible award of contract number CS-2019-0053 for Bashpagaw Museum Roof Replacement Project to Rodriguez Construction in an amount not to exceed $34,406.24, funded from account number 21-65-51236 Capital Improvement Plan for Bashpagaw. Jerry.
So, I guess I'm elected. Mayor and Council, we went out to bid for the roof for the museum portion of Bashpagawa, and we had two bidders. This bidder is a local bidder that came in. They were the lowest responsible bidder at $34,406.24. Rodriguez Construction. It's staff recommendation that you award this contract to them.
And this is already in our CIP?
Yes.
This money is already allocated?
This was in the CIP for Bashpagawa.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second for approval of contract. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstaining? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Next, we have council shall discuss and possibly approve an agreement for professional planning services in the amount of $45,000 between the City of Globe and Central Arizona governments to conduct a regional housing study in the Globe Miami area, with $10,000 to be funded by the City of Globe fiscal year 2019-20 CIP, and the remainder to be refunded by Gila County $10,000, Freeport, McMoran $12,925, Cobra Valley Regional Medical Center $5,000, Southern Gila County EDC $5,075, Town of Miami $2,000, for the total contract amount of $45,000.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. You stole my thunder. That was so exciting to be able to read our list of partners on this really amazing project that we're finally going to be moving forward. We have some guests in the audience that will come in and speak to the point. This is such a great evening to have the presentation from the Asanoviches and their partners, because this housing issue that we have in our community really truly is an issue all the way from affordable housing to workforce housing, multifamily, single family, the silver tsunami that we're going to be seeing as our population ages and they need to move into homes that they can be independent and care for themselves and their homes. So this tool will allow us to actively and aggressively go after the kind of housing that we need as a community. And when we want to see more small businesses, more mid-sized businesses, light industrial operations come into our community, one thing that is always looked at, aside from do you have the workforce that we need, is where can my workforce live? And we dealt with this about 9 months ago when we had a prospective company come and take a look at our community, and which is still a viable project in our community and region. And they said, okay, now show me 50 homes. We want to sign leases on 50 units. We did not have it. And that is what really put this into fast forward, that right now we're in a housing crisis. We really are. And so to have this development up and coming through the pipeline is going to really be such an asset for our community. The purpose for us to create this planning tool is going to help us identify and analyze existing and projecting housing needs, what I just identified, and to develop the goals, policies, and the quantifiable objectives for increased housing types, tenure, and affordability across all market segments. And also to address program needs for the construction, the rehabilitation, preservation, and the financing for all of these different types of housing developments. Our vendor, CAG, and I'd like to invite Robert Mawson to come up and speak to the point. And
we also have our executive director of Central Arizona Government, Andrea Robles back there also.
She's a little under the weather.
Oh, okay.
I know. So thank you for coming. The sections of our housing plan, the scope of work will include community and housing profile, a housing needs assessment. We're going to take a look at land use and policy review, and also goals, policies, and quantifiable objectives. This is really, it's more than just a study. It's more than just a study that will collect dust on a shelf. This is an action plan that we are going to move forward to seek the type of housing that we need to meet our need. And Robert, would you like to come up?
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Gameros, Vice Mayor Stapleton, members of the City Council. It's good to see you all. As was said, I'm here representing Central Arizona Governments. You would normally be seeing Brad Meekum. He's also under the weather, but enough that it kind of precluded him making the trip. So I'm here on his behalf and on behalf of CAG. So I don't want to give anybody the false impression that this is a magic wand, and once this is done, boom, houses are going to appear in the community. But it is a very viable and important tool to have in place. You have something that's more valuable than this, and that's someone who's willing to invest locally. Because I will tell you from experience, doing these studies is a great thing, and developing plan of actions are great things. But there's a lot of competition out there for investment. And I can take my money down to the valley. I can take my money other places where there's nice big tracts of flat land right next to utilities that are easy to develop, and I can make a bunch of money. But having someone who's willing to come into the city of Globe and in our greater community and make those investments is very, very valuable asset. So doing this study will help give potential investors the information that they need to make decisions. Mr. Asanovich and his partners have done enough research to understand that they can buy this parcel of land and they can make a viable development out of it. They may not and will not likely make as much money as they would if they invested elsewhere, but they have a tie to this community. But this kind of information is something that you can put in a potential investor's hands. You can say, look, this community, these opportunities, these investment strategies, these vehicles will help you make a viable investment here in our community. And it can really tip the scales if you have someone that's looking in multiple places and really doesn't have maybe as much of a tie locally. I think it's outlined in your packet what the scope of work will be, and I think Linda made a good summary of that. We also have in here a copy of the contract for our services. Services will be not to exceed $45,000. There are multiple partners here that are involved in the project. There will be multiple facets to this study and action plan, so that we'll be able to answer those questions. And it's not going to be just based on data and statistics, but it's going to involve participation from city staff, participation from community members, organizations, research outside of the city to see what's going on in other places, to put this information together. So it's going to be a team effort, and I think that's the other viable and important part of what you've got here is you have people who are interested, who want to participate, who have experience, and who are willing to get out there and work for it. So if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them for you. Otherwise, the items are before you tonight.
Mike?
First of all, welcome back, Robert.
Thank you.
It's been a while. 7 months, is that going to be enough time to do this report?
That's the time we're estimating from the time we get this agreement executed, 7 months to have a final product. Now, understanding the contract does allow for expansion, changes as things go through. It's kind of a flow, but that's an accurate estimate at this point in time.
Orlando?
Welcome. A couple of things. First of all, I know that we have several of these studies sitting on shelves, and for the benefit of the public, they do have a shelf life where they're no longer valuable because they're not current. The other thing I would say is that over the last 2 censuses, we have not really changed at all in our population, but these still indicate where housing and what type of housing is needed, and that can change over time regardless of the population. Am I right in those?
You're correct, Mr. Mayor. They do have a shelf life, especially when you start talking about market analysis and those types of things, and you start looking at investment opportunities. You know, the market changes every day. Investments change, interest rates change, all those types of things change. And so your plans do have a certain period of time when they are more accurate. There are several studies. We've been involved in studies here for a number of years, and there's valuable information in there that doesn't change. As you said, our population statistics are pretty similar. We haven't had these huge increases in population. If you go around the community, you look at our housing, you know, a lot of our housing stock is very similar to what it was 10, 20 years ago, but the condition of those homes may have changed, because if nothing's been done, they just have been seriously decaying. On the other hand, if people are buying them and fixing them up and there are things out there that people can utilize, then that changes it as well, because you now have more occupied homes, less unoccupied homes. You have more opportunity for people to come in and buy things. I will also go out on a limb here and say you're not just looking at a housing study that's going to tell you you need more affordable housing or you need more rentals or more purchases. You're going to need housing across the board. That's just what's happening in the country right now. There's a housing shortage pretty much everywhere that you look, and it's not a single area of housing. It's across the board. The investment in housing over the last 20 to 40 years has not been what it has been in the past. Now, if you go down to Maricopa County, perhaps you'll see that. Portions of Pinal County, you'll see a lot of investment down there. But that's new. In communities like this and in rural America, you are not seeing those types of home starts. You go back 50 years in this county and you'll see a number of housing starts much higher than we've seen in the last 10 or 20 years. And when that happens, that means you have a lot more deaths than you have births, and it catches up with you eventually. So yes, there's a shelf life to these studies. There's data that we can roll forward, but we don't want to get caught in the situation that we're using old data to make projections about our future.
I'm not sure if this question is for yourself or for Linda. So, question, comment, tell us about why this is important for funding, for people to secure funding and grants.
You wanna address that?
So actually, last night, we met with some individuals that have resources to bring those kind of contacts in the community that will bring development across all segments. And the one thing that this person told us is that you need your data, and it needs to be current, and it needs to tell your full story, because these investors that are coming in and bringing millions of dollars to invest in our community, they're getting their financing from institutions that require this type of hard facts to base their investment and minimize their risk. And so I'm also working with another group within Hewitt County, their Community Services Division, and they are going after some grant funding to move forward with multifamily housing that is affordable. And yes, there are studies that have been done here in the past, and like Mr. Nelson had said, that shelf life has expired, and even though our population numbers have remained the same, our population has aged. We're older. Older individuals typically have fixed incomes, so they're needing more affordable housing. What we also have, and this kind of addresses, how are we seeing that need? We're hearing this from our major employers in the community, which is Freeport, which is Capstone, and they document the leakage that they have within their workforce. 5 years ago, there was not 60% leakage, and that's where we're at today. And so those are good salaries going down to the valley and buying the kind of homes that they would buy here if we had the inventory for them to buy, because we have a wonderful community. It's coming back up. We're seeing our downtown come back alive, be revitalized. Our schools are improving. We have a robotics program. We're the only rural community in Arizona that has a robotics team K through 12. Rural, at the EDC, our motto is rural by choice. Not everybody wants to live in the valley and deal with the traffic. Yes, there's a lot to do, but then you're dealing with traffic. There's a lot of amenities, but the rural lifestyle, there's so much to be said. And the people that are leaving here are not always leaving because they want that. They're leaving because they have to, because they can't find the house here that they can live in. Thank you.
If I may add to that just a little bit also. When you're comparing communities, you have investors that are coming in and they're looking perhaps at 2 communities, 3 communities. If you're the community that has the information, then you are saving that company or that individual time, effort, expense to get to the point where they can say, yeah, I think this is a viable project. So if you're the one that holds the keys and has that information and that data, you're going to be way ahead when someone comes in.
I want to make a quick point. And since I've been here 3 years plus, we've not had a study that addressed the globe situation. We have had them before, but they are out of date. This study will sit in our hands. Linda will have them with her in her briefcase. I will have them in my truck. You should all have a couple copies when you meet people and you come across those people who are curious about Globe. We sit there and we talk about explaining that the shortage of housing and if this would happen and that would happen, and a lot of times we move our hands a lot too to make emphasis. But the people who are going to invest money, they want to see the numbers, they want to see facts, and they want to have a document that they can share with their people and their bankers and things like that. And it's so very important to have this document. We have people we talk to we need to get this to. We have people we want to talk to that we don't want to go and talk to them without having something where you can say, don't just believe me, here are the numbers. So this is so crucial to everything we have, and we feel like we're at a tipping point, and this is the right time and the right place. And so everyone will get multiple copies.
Not on the shelf.
Ready?
In your truck.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a comment. You know, we started talking about this, and what came to mind was Councilman Shipley's comments, not just today, but sometime back, about how many studies have been performed and done and just sit on the shelf. And so I'm not saying this is just another one, but I think the temperature of this council and the council before has proven that, you know, we are very economic development driven. And I would just encourage this council, if this does pass, that we take this torch and just keep pushing it forward. Because it's just, you know, the drive is there. There's a lot of big community members here, the mines, the schools, and the county and the cities are all lining up. And we really need to take advantage of those opportunities. When you have a community as a whole, the industry and the municipalities lining up for one common goal, we need to just keep driving that. So, just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just to tag on to that, if a plan sits on the shelf, it's not the plan's fault.
Yeah.
Right.
And we had one in 2012 that was done and it really sat on the shelf and wasn't.
That one was also very market specific. It was addressing and actually site specific.
And then
One of the other hats that I wear is I'm on the hospital board, and we require our medical professionals, you know, the higher level, we require them to live here. And that has been, this is one of the biggest reasons that, first of all, it's hard to attract somebody to rural anywhere. It's not for everybody, but when we find somebody and are a good fit, which is a hard thing to do, then we lose them because we don't have the housing available. It's just really frustrating. So the faster we can get this going and make some progress with housing, the better.
motion.
After another, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna ask Fernando, that sounded like a motion to me.
Is there any other comments or questions? I motion that we approve the agreement for professional planning services between the City of Globe and CAG to conduct a regional housing study in the Globe Miami area for the contract amount of $45,000, with $10,000 being derived from the city CIP funds and the remainder of the budget through contributions from local partners.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstaining? Motion passed. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
And welcome back.
Thank you, it's good to be back.
Next, we have late agenda items.
Mayor, did you get an updated copy?
I have it on my,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, on my hotspot. Yes. We have issuance of proclamation to support awareness of the need for effective educational options by proclaiming January 26th through February 1st, 2020 as Globe School Choice Week.
And Mr. Mayor, as part of our late item requirements or protocol, this was submitted late with something that came up that you did not know about before the agenda deadline, and you have the option to hear this or to not hear this. And so if council is supportive of hearing this, then I would recommend you go forward.
To vote on it or?
No, just this is a chance for anybody on council to say, you know, I'd like to see this, you know, held, because it did come and it was an urgency.
Do they need these? They're leaving.
Oh, don't let them keep what we want to.
You want?
Yeah. They make more. So
are we good with the late agenda item?
Yeah, so is everybody agree to hear this? Okay, good.
Okay, so I'll read the proclamation. It says, whereas all children in Globe should have access to the highest quality education possible, and whereas Globe recognizes the important role of the effective education plays in preparing all students in Globe to be successful adults, and whereas quality education is critically important to the economic vitality of Globe, and whereas Globe is home of a multitude of high-quality public and non-public schools from which parents can choose for their children, in addition to families to educate their children in the home. And whereas educational variety not only helps to diversify our economy, but also enhances the vibrancy of our community. And whereas Globe has many high-quality teaching professionals in all types of school settings who are committed to educating our children. And whereas School Choice Week is celebrated across the country by millions of students, parents, educators, schools, and organizers to raise awareness of the need for effective educational options. So that now, therefore, I, Al Camaros, do hereby recognize January 26th through February 1st, 2020 as Globe School Choice Week, and call this observance to be the attention of all of our citizens. And we'll get it to the Globe schools, to Jerry. So next on the late agenda items, we have a council will discuss, give direction and possible direct staff to bring forward a final draft of a 20-year common line replacement policy.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, again, this, we had put money in the budget for common line common sewer line replacement policy. We've been working on that, but I had not gotten it done as quickly as I had hoped to. We did have a time-sensitive issue pop up, Councilwoman Giles, I think it was Thursday or Friday, and so in order to address this, we put this on for tonight, and so I would hope that you would hear this item so I can give you the foundation of what we're doing and why we're doing it, and then ask you if I can get direction on implementing a small portion of this policy. So is council willing to hear this late agenda item?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I'm not going to follow this direct. You have the policy in front of you, but I'm going to pull from it just because I wrote it just recently. Common sewer lines. When you have private individuals, by code, a house has a lateral. It goes to the main. Each house has one lateral. If that lateral gets plugged, that person pays for it, and it's on private property. Common sewer lines where you have one lateral that connects to multiple houses, and they're all on private property, and you have this communal. Everybody's happy when we put it all together and everybody saved money, but then when the downhill house gets a clog, and they're having stuff coming, they're having problems, and the two uphill people are like, well, I don't know why you want me to help pay for this because my stuff is working fine, and so you get these problems. And then they come to the city, and it's like, well, it's all private property. We have a gift clause situation because we cannot go in and help one person. We can't take public money again and help one private individual. Okay, that conversation never goes well. It never goes well. Okay, every time we have it with a person that's on a common line. What we've determined and what we've worked to do, and the thought process behind this, we run a sewer enterprise service. We have a utility. Our utility has a delivery system. Part of that delivery system is every lateral line in here. Some are to code, some are not. We have a need as an operator of a utility to make sure that our system functions efficiently. We can take a portion of our money that we collect as part of enterprise and to improve our system. We don't get past the gift clause, but we're not going to be giving to one private individual. We're going to be investing in a class of individuals, a class of property owners who happen to be, for whatever reason, whether it's before the code, whether it's because they didn't know about the code or they just ignored the code, they're on a common line. How they got there, we'll never figure it out. We don't let it happen anymore. So there is a finite number of people who are on a common system. We are going to say, we're going to not pick and choose winners and losers. We're going to put money aside for the next 20 years, and we're going to fix every one of them. Okay, now, Jerry's probably having an aneurysm behind me right now. Because we had this conversation. We don't have the money to do every one of them right now. We hope to put money aside to do that. But we will do them not in order as they come forward based on a criteria and a checklist and urgency. And so what we will not do is we're not going to go and replace the plumber and fix common lines. Common lines are what we're trying to get rid of. What we will do is say, when based on an application process and a criteria, if you come to us, we will qualify you as a common line person, and we will pay to put in a individual lateral for your property. Now you can't do one at a time. Sometimes you have to do everybody on there. We will do it in order of the urgency, of the cost, of the ease, of the lack of unintended consequences. On this draft policy that Shelley handed out, I think the very last page is the ranking rubric. The number of properties connected. It's going to be easier to do one with 3 than with 7. Combined distance, if it's 30 feet to the street and it goes sideways on the hill, that's easy. If it's 300 feet and it's uphill to downhill, that's going to take more. Distance from existing manholes, there are situations we'll likely have to put a manhole in to make this work. Site work, do the variances. Sometimes the distance from where the main line and the house, there's somebody else's property in there. Okay, frequency and magnitude of failures. We're definitely going to rate this for public health urgency and the frequency. There's some houses out there that are coming up all the time, and everybody's lumping through this, but some are just high rollers, and we just have these ongoing issues with. The secondary consequences that we don't always know, future additional costs that can be avoided. If we can spend some money now so something doesn't cost us or someone a bunch of money later, that would rank it higher. The level of funding that we have, level of funding that somebody could maybe share if need be, and an ability to locate and identify the existing lines and connection points. I mean, some of these lines, to locate them, the surveying, things like that, that's going to make it more expensive. That's going to make it harder to make those fixes. And like I say, complications due to age and conditions. Jerry and the water dogs tell me a story about stuff. You patch it here and it breaks here. You patch it here and it breaks here. This whole chain. So there's a lot of factors. Each one of these will be treated different. We have a group from the city engineer, myself, finance. The people in Public Works. We're going to evaluate and rank these, and when we have an application, we'll rank that application and say this is where it is in the spectrum. The process will go on the highest ranking ones first. You could have you could come in and somebody could race down here tomorrow once we get this up and running, this application process, and put an application for sewer line on Yuma Street, okay, and it's gonna take a while to get to that, but for some that are just are low-hanging fruit and high flyers and a public health urgency, and there's I think one of the ones that I need to hammer out, but basically there's some economic factors in there. Those I think we need to rank higher and do. And we're not saying that we won't do every one of them, but we are saying we're going to do the certain ones first, and then we'll work our way down. We're going to try to, once we have this ranking, like I say, so if somebody has a big old long project and it's kind of pricey, kind of expensive, and we're working to get money because it's going to be over what we have in the budget this year. But somebody else comes in with something we can knock out for 1/3 the money, it's only 1/3 of what we have in the budget, and we can do it now, we're going to do that one first. Okay, and so just because the date you get this set in does not mean the date that you will get it fixed. You're in the bucket, but we're going to do this based on this criteria. And what was some of the other things? And like I say, this is going to be not to repair a common line, not to clean out a common line. It's going to be to install a lateral. And the other key piece is we will 9 out of 10 times get 3 bids from local plumbers and have the local plumbers do this. This is not something where you want a whole public works crew pulling up with the tractor and the backhoe and a truck full of gravel you know, Dave Kemp knocks on the door and talks to the lady behind there and says, okay, we're here, you know, and it's gonna be.
That is how Dave would sound.
But I mean, there's some engineering that has to go on. We got to figure out where we connect it up. We got to do that. And there's going to be, what if that plumber gets in there and finds out there's more than the lateral problem? Okay, we got some problems with the internal housing, and there's reason that toilet has problems. It's not just the lateral, but it's other things. We don't want to crack open a job and then have, you know, all of this going on. So I think it's a better scenario that we contract with local plumbers that we can get the 3 bids. It depends, all the procurement laws, we haven't quite worked out all of those and what we're thinking. I think we can do this, but tonight I'm asking you, does this concept of we're going to fix them all in just a matter of time, we're not in violation of gift clause, because we're not telling anybody no, one person yes, one person no, and then using the local plumbers and doing it this way. If council, if we see that we get a line of applications and we're not burning through them, maybe we put more money in the budget next year and we can burn through some. Maybe there's some that we try to find some money for, but and we will get a pile of applications once this you know is known and is implemented. But you know, you got to start somewhere. And so tonight, I'd like to ask council to, if you're okay with this concept, we'll hammer it out and bring it back. But questions?
I have a couple things. I've been around about 20 years, and in my time, the city wasn't real diligent. They're like, yeah, just do that. And so I don't believe that it's all the property owner's fault. And so I feel like this is the most equitable way to move forward. And I do think you have to have the latitude to prioritize and do what's doable when you can do it. I have one more question, but I'll think of it in a minute. So.
Maybe I'll ask you.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, we move forward with this concept. Anything that we, I won't say we touch, but anything that we work on, are we now assuming responsibility or liability for the life of that infrastructure? Or is this
we do this
one-time fix?
And it's a one-time, not a fix, but an installation. We're putting something new in that makes the broken part move. And so,
but the owner still owns it.
But we're gonna give it back to the owner.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna get a permission to go in. We don't have the legalities figured out. I haven't gotten to figure out how we do the ownership and stuff. But my concept is that, you know, if you want us to do this, you're gonna have to waive us to go in and do this, and then we're gonna do it, and then we're gonna give it back to you. And if you know, not 100 years, but 10 years from now, it breaks, it's your line again. 2 years from now, somebody, you know, wants to put a really cool jungle gym in the front yard and they break it. It's you. They're not going to call us back, and we'll get the paperwork and the notification and the clarifications in there. But it will go back to the owner. Does that help?
And we'll have documentation to prove that.
We're
20 years ago, we may not be here, but previous councils may strapped it to something they wouldn't be happy about.
I think I scream documentation about 3 times a week and once or twice at night. So we documentation on everything we do. We're gonna have paper coming out of our ears. We need to, because we need to have the records. We need to be able to track it down. We need to keep track. So
well,
yes.
One last comment. I know this is an existing facility, but I have constituents in my district that don't have any sewer at all. And you know, when I went talking door to door, they made sure that I knew about that, and that whether it's true or not, I don't know, but that they were given the impression that the city was going to provide sewer service for them. So I think just maybe be ready for those conversations.
Well, and I probably shouldn't have used Yuma Street, because Yuma Street is houses that the owners, when they bought those, chose to buy without city utilities. And we allowed it at that time. This is a cost-saving choice that you made when you bought the house. Now, you know, one of the reasons the annexation is coming in the city is so they can get on city sewer system. You know, it's easier to sell a house when it's not a septic. And so people, even common lines, you can say people, well, they try to save money. I don't want to spend the money to get my own lateral. I just look into yours. And they save some money, and we could be hard-nosed and say, you know, well, you made that decision, you have to deal with that. But, Fernando, as you say, I'm sorry, Councilman Shipley, there is some, we make money off of these delivery systems, and part of our transportation of waste is your laterals, and so it is part of our infrastructure, whether we like it or not. People who are not at all on the sewer system, I think, is a different class of people, a different class of a situation. And they chose not to pay to have that sewer line run. They chose not to work with the city to get a sewer line there. Still, it's an improvement that the property owner is responsible for, and whoever told those people that the city would bring that was in error. Doesn't mean it's not impossible, but it would be a gift clause violation for us to spend the money individually to take sewer to somebody who never had it when they bought it. So this policy does not address people on septic that don't have a sewer connection. And it also addresses people outside the city who are on our system. There are people that are in the county but we let them, for whatever reason, not to make them annex, but we let them hook up, and they're in our system, and they will be, being in the city is a strong precursor. You can get service first, but eventually they're in our system, and under this policy, somebody in a common line in the county is going to get service before we would go, and we would never use this to drag lines to replace the septic system.
But there,
Sorry, Jerry, you have a comment?
but you know, well, Jerry's getting up there. Let me say this though: there are people that bought properties that didn't even know they were on a common line,
Well,
and so really, you know,
Oh, yeah, no,
what went on? You're right. What went on? It
Yeah.
did go on, and we've all heard about it, and we need to address it.
Yeah.
It's not their fault.
Yeah,
We need to help
well,
our residents.
It's not something that we're gonna. It's a structurally flawed configuration that needs to be addressed, and we can do it by improving our infrastructure at the tail ends. Go ahead.
See if I can get myself in trouble here. So actually, I read through the policy, and the policy is actually really good. The only thing I would add to it is the feasibility of construction. It answers what Councilman Rios was talking about. There's some areas that it would cost us a fortune we'd have to put either lift stations or something in to take care of. So I would add that one comment, but I think the policy is great. But I wanted to point out a few things. Is one, when people say, why aren't you taking care of it? We pay you for sewer. So what they pay us for is a transmission from our city main to a point at which we treat the sewage, which is our sewer plant, which is our wastewater treatment plant, and then treating that sewer and getting rid of it. That's what they pay us for. They don't pay us for the lateral that's in their yard. And so I just want to point that out. The second thing is we don't have the manpower or the equipment to do this work. So if we decide to move forward with this, as I think we should with this policy, I think that we probably need to do an RSOQ for on-call plumbers that we could actually put out, and that way when we had a job we could throw it out as quickly as we possibly could to get somebody in. We need to talk about how we spend the money, whether we make an application or the owner makes an application to us, because if we actually do the digging or even pay for the digging, then we're responsible for the easements, we're responsible for ADQ permitting. But if the property owner pays for that, they're not responsible for that, and then they can but they could apply for that funding to be reimbursed or even for it to be paid back or paid up front. So I think we need to work that out a little bit. The third thing I just wanted the council to be aware of is we can't go out and fix a line when it backs up. I mean, if we're gonna run laterals from a house, when it backs up is not the way to do that. You know, because you have to, it takes time. We have to send our engineers out to take elevations, and the plumbers will have to make sure they have the easements and so forth on where they want to run the lines. If we had a plumber on call and we gave them permission, it's liable to take 2-3 weeks for them to get out there and get that line in there.
that common line is going to be backing up till then. So we need to make it real clear to the people with common lines that they're responsible, but this is a way that we can take that responsibility away from you in the future. So I think that's important, because I know some of the common line issues that we have, we want to run right out and take care of it, but legally we can't do that. You know, we will assist them in any way we can, but I think it's important to note that it takes time. You can't just throw a line in. You have to make sure that it's gravity fed, and if it's not, then we have to pump sewage, and then you have to have grinders, and then you know it's a lot more expensive if it's not gravity. So you use force mains is what they call them. So I would just want council to understand there's a process we're going to have to go through, and we can't do something immediately. So.
And when Jerry was talking, you may not want to go very far, but one of the things that Jerry has taught me about sewer lines is you need to have some gravity, but not too much gravity. Okay, and if you got a line shooting way down the hill, it can get problems too. So there are a lot of factors in there. We're going to hammer this out. If you like if the council approves the concept, we can come back, and Jerry and I will probably have a couple of lunches at the Chinese food place to figure out the details on this, and
You'll
get
buy
the
this time.
yeah. And two things I want to make sure that you're aware of. I think easements, if the configuration requires that the easement go across a neighbor's property, I think that's an issue that the neighbors are going to have to work out. I don't see us going in there and do eminent domain or condemning something. And sometimes those things can get interesting. The other thing, if it's a rental, we can't do this with a rental. This is a property owner only thing. And I'm imagining at some point we're going to run up against a renter who's got this problem, and the owner is either AWOL or not communicating or whatever. And so, this is not going to be a silver bullet that's going to fix everything. But you got to start somewhere.
So also the requirements, I see Talon's back there, but the requirements for new lines versus maintenance of the old lines are a little different too. We would need ADQ permits to put in new lines, so we want to be real careful about how we put that out there, because for every one it's $1,000 for just a permit fee, and so we might want to make sure that we talk about the process a little bit.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of meat that needs to be put on the bones that I've put together here.
This is a really good policy as far as the way it protects the city. And the only thing I would add to it, like I say, is feasibility of construction, because there are houses that it would not be feasible at all. It would cost us $100,000 in one area to tie in 4 houses. How long is it going to take for us to recoup that? That's just not feasible.
I remembered my other question. I assume we kind of have an idea how many are on common line, but there's probably a real reality that there's probably more than we know.
So we've counted to 40, and we haven't stopped. So there's at least 40 out there, and there's some that we don't know about. So but what we have been real good at is figuring out how many people are on common lines. So like there's 5 on this one, 4 on that one, that kind of thing. So we've been pretty good at figuring that out. And honestly, most of the time it's because they stop up and we have issues, or they have issues. And then we figure out how many houses. We help people out by running dye tests and so forth, and that's something the city can do. We don't run cameras down their lines. We run down our lines to make sure that our lines are clear. But we do dye tests and so forth to see if their lines, if it's from their point down or if it's up above, and we help them out that way.
And I just want to be clear that we are not obligated to do it. It just provides us the vehicle to do it.
for this
To,
policy.
for addressing the common lines.
So I think that we have a limited amount of funds, and we want to address as many as we possibly can on a yearly basis.
Let me speak to that. This policy would obligate us to fix, to add any new lateral to anyone who doesn't have an independent lateral, no matter what the cost. But it doesn't obligate us to a time frame. It's when the money's available. If we put 60,000 away this year, if we put 60,000 and maybe take that up to 100,000 over the 20 years, it'll be a pretty good lump sum of money. But when Jerry talks about some that are so expensive they're unfeasible, it would be, if they qualify as a group of homes that's in such a situation that they're on a common line, that we would have to tackle that. But it wouldn't be the first, second, third, fourth, or 39th, it's probably the 40th that we do, because it's going to be so expensive that it's going to take time. And Vice Mayor, we've talked about a situation that we've been to, and Mayor, you've been there too, and Councilman Giles, we've talked about a situation that's occurring right now. This one is much cleaner and simpler, and I don't want to judge urgency because I don't know exactly where they're at. The one that we've talked about, our budget wouldn't handle, that we have currently budgeted. The one that we're talking about here could easily go for about a third of what we have budgeted. So, so that's going to fit in, and there's going to be that frustration that, you know, you're going to have some people. We'll run that through the middle, but there's the fix for the one that we're talking about is extensive, and I think requires a manhole. It requires new lines in the street. I can't remember off the top, but it's not going to be as high on the list as some, and it'll be on the list, but other smaller ones may pop up between there, and this is a reality. And at least we're not saying no way, no how. We're just saying soon we'll get to it when we have the money, and when, you know, so.
So that was my question, where you were going with that. The project that I've been working on over a year. So I understand it's going to be expensive, but I think if that's the case, if we do buy this off, I would want to include the people that call me once a month and tell them how are we going to prioritize the list, and here's where you're going to fall. This is the cost.
Yeah, and I would sit down, just as I'm going to ask before we get done. I'm going to brief the group that Councilman Giles is working with. I will brief them as soon as I can get a meeting with them before we come back. I don't need to wait, and let them know what we're trying to do. Get another look at the handle when the application is approved by them, by council. We can get them signed up. You know, I don't know how feasible, what the costs are on that project. Everything I've heard is it's a lot. So, but
besides the point, I'm saying.
Yeah. But so if that's the only one we do, and then that's the next one, and no one else applies, then we'll get to it. But I don't know how it's going to shake out. So I can't sit here and promise you that this is going to get them, that this is going to happen at this point or that point. I can meet with them, get an assessment, come and tell you, and then we'll have a new message. I don't know if it'll be, you know, it's still probably not going to be the message they want to hear. But at least
the last time this happened, they paid to have a plumber come out, and they apparently were told the city was going to cover the cost to snake the lines.
No, and I was there for that call, and we had a conversation with them and said we don't do repairs. We're working on this program, this situation. We during my time period, we've never gone and told somebody the city will road a router. We will clean your lines. We will clean your drains. It's illegal to do that.
Mr. Mayor, is there a possibility that, say for example, I'm one of the houses that has a common line. The city, as you indicated by this policy, would be obligated at some point, unknown point, to improve the line. Is there any way to build in a mechanism where I could pool money between my neighbors, we could pay for it, and maybe have our sewer line or sewer fees waived until we recoup the money?
Something like that. I mean, that's something. I have in here just as a tidbit. any type of leveraging, how did I call it? Leveraging of funds or partnerships with property owners that can use advance the ranking. If you're gonna come to the table with half, that brings it closer on the list, more feasible. Yeah, so if you wanna, that's what we're hoping for. That would be very helpful, because then every dollar we spend gets us $2 of advantage. So
I think that's a great idea if somebody wanted to put the cost in, then they get reimbursed by credit.
Yeah.
It's the same dollar value. It's not money they're having to pay. So.
And I haven't run the credit thing through the mill, and but there should be a way. I'm not totally on waiving. You get into problems when you waive free fees. You can give credit for fees, but actually, you work with us and we will stop charging the bill. I don't know. I don't think that. I'm gonna have to talk to the attorneys about that one.
Okay.
But
do we bill by usage?
What's that?
Do we bill by usage?
No, it's
a flat fee. Just a flat fee. Yeah. So let me take that back and run it through the brain trust back behind me, and we'll see, and the attorney, and see.
Well, we've got to start somewhere. This is a good starting point.
So
Yeah, it's been going on for decades. Is there an option also, if it's a high cost, and I know this area you're talking about is pretty high cost, could we allow somebody to put a septic tank in? To get out of the situation?
I don't even.
No.
Why couldn't we? I mean, if it's gonna cost less money than having to put in a lift station and everything else, why would we?
Well, if they don't currently have sewer service, that's okay. But our help me out here, Chris. Our code
We have
is
to be, if you're within 200 feet of the city main, and you're physically able to tie into the main, you have to tie into the main.
that's our code.
Then I think we need to look at that, because if it's gonna cost me $25,000 to hook up and put a lift station, and it's only gonna cost me $15 to put in a septic tank, why would I wanna pay the higher cost? I don't think it's right. If I had raw sewage running in my house and my yard, I'd wanna take care of the situation right away.
Most houses don't have the property it takes to have a septic field, and therefore you end up with a clay pool as the septic pools and so forth. So to answer your question, the reason you have to do that is to eliminate the cesspools and the illegal septic tanks like clay pool has right now.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, respectfully, I would really hesitate from going into any type of re-allowing, septic tanks in here, where, you live in a city for a certain level of high quality, unmatched police and fire, quality roads we're trying to put in there. But if we go, as they say, backwards, just because of funds, I'd rather we hang tight and do it right than put in 19th century technology in our 21st century city. And I get the money situation and things like that. We can handle them on an individual basis. We haven't even talked about looking at one-up WIFA or other USDA applications that cases that are that extreme. But I'd look for any other way than sending the message that we would reverse our course on that. And this is a brainstorming. I'm happy to hear the ideas, and we want to do that. So everything is on the table to think about. But that's just my first reaction.
Can CDBG funding be used for that?
Where's Andrea?
I think it can.
Yep.
So-
CAG's gonna pay for it.
So there is WIFA funds available, there are USDA funds available. The CDBG funds probably will qualify a lot less on something like this than they would for street improvements or public safety, but it's possible.
That's probably a higher level of success angle for the one that we're talking about for years, because it does have a threshold that's very high.
So let's look into that.
Yeah. So now, before you vote to have us develop this policy and bring it back, I would like to get a simple direction from you We have a situation that is you know, I would hesitate to call it urgent, but very timely right now. The fix is not that much. It would rank high on this criteria, and I would, it's gonna, as Jerry said, it's gonna take even more time to get this going. But I would like the authority from council to spend about, for two situations, about $20,000 towards doing this right now in one situation. It's a high flyer. Economically, there's problems. I mean, it's not a wealthy, the one owner is on a fixed income, and there's other things that fit in the criteria. It's not a long distance. And so rather than us hammering this out and coming back, we won't have another meeting until February. If you're okay with this concept, I feel comfortable, and with your permission to spend this money, it'll be kind of a test case. We'll learn a lot from it, probably make the policy better, and get this timely problem handled sooner rather than later.
And this is money we already have set aside?
Yes, we have set $60,000 aside for common line problem fixes, and I apologize that I didn't bring this policy forward sooner, but this policy will be better because of the timing of this, although.
Did you say 20,000 for two different?
Well, let's say 25,000 for, so this is something I don't want to do. We don't want to go in on a common line and we got 1 out of 4 is having problems, so we fix 1. We want to go in one time and get the 3 of them off. And so if there are 5 people on there, we need to get 4 off. If there are 3 people on, we need to get 2 off. In this situation, there's 3 people on, we need to get 2 off. And so I would say, let's say 25,000, because I'm not a banker, I'm not a public works person, but I believe 25 would do it. And
that's a reasonable amount, Jerry.
I'd have to run the numbers. I'd have to get permits and easements and.
Well, it would be us, it would be somebody else.
I know, but we'd have to do the engineering design on it. But, I'd have to run the numbers. I can't tell you that I'd do it for 25,000.
So you don't have any idea what it's going to cost? You're just throwing numbers.
So,
I'm throwing a number out. I believe 25 is high enough to cover that. And if we don't get both, at least we'll get 1.
You can fix the ones on the top. As you go down lower, they get a little more complicated because you can't just fix the middle one without fixing the top ones too.
In order for us to try to price this right now, we would just, and if we price it and it's over that money, we'll have to figure out something. But and this is not agendized. I'm getting a head nod from you that when I come back to finalize this, that you were on board with this, and we will ratify it at that time. So.
I am. We have to start. We have to start.
And it's if you would like, we can do it with the stipulation that if it pencils out over 25, that we halt and we don't do anything until we know a number, and not to exceed 25.
Sorry, Mayor, we have how much already budgeted? You said 60,000.
Yeah. Or and so I tell you that if we can't do it for 25, we'll come back.
Well, you're going to have to. If it costs more than 25, you're still going to have to come back. We're still going to have to fix the problem.
Yeah. So if you want to say,
if you've got 60 grand,
yeah.
I mean, you might as well work with that figure if you're not sure.
We get 1 or 2 projects a year.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's realistic to do more than 1 or 2 projects with the amount of money we have.
I worry about, to Councilman Rios' point, if this policy isn't set in stone yet, is liability going to come back on us?
No, I will make sure that we have the liability and that stuff now nailed down, because pretty much we're going to be paying a plumber who is taking on pretty much that liability. Is under his license, registered contractors, and I'll fine tune it and make sure that we don't. But I think this one we can do without a liability, since it's not gonna be hands-on, it's just gonna be the bidding process. I'll probably have more trouble with Jeannie actually than Jerry. Who's also behind me.
So do you want to vote on that, or?
No, this would be direction, it's not agendized as a vote, it's agendized as the, as the bringing the policy back, but I am telling you that this is something I'm gonna do, and so when you find out that I've done it, you're not gonna come back and say, you know, what you're talking about, you know, so.
Whatever do you mean? You mean people actually do those kind of things?
So I believe it's within my ability to take care of this, because only because the money is funded already for this designation, and the policy is, the concept is not gonna be a surprise when I come back with this. You're not gonna say, oh, we knew nothing about this, or we didn't. But the most important thing that I want to stress to you is, by taking on all common line problems and making not an individual that has a common line, that is lacking an individual lateral, but making that a group of people that we're gonna take responsibility for through our enterprise system. That concept, if you're okay with that concept, then this will work. If not, then it's gonna be a gift cause problem.
Freddie?
Well, I think it would be important then, if we're gonna go this direction, two things. You're obviously going to have some documentation that this is a one-time repair, fix.
Yep.
It's theirs after that. And secondly, I think, so that we stay straight on this, that we actually vote on the policy for you to work on it, bring it forward, that way it's a ratification before we make this decision to move forward with these one or two customers. I think that puts us in line.
So do you want to wait on the fix before we do the policy?
No, I say we move forward with the ratification with the policy, or.
Okay, we include this fix and ratify the action I'm about to take.
And you bring it back.
Yeah.
And that way we've already
Yeah.
agreed that we're gonna move forward with this policy, and oh, by the way, we've got an emergency going on. That way everything falls in line.
I get it then.
I don't know if I worded that right.
No, but we got it. I'm good.
So basically, you're saying we would say bring this forward for ratification.
And what you're saying is, I'm gonna bring back a policy, and with the stipulation that we bring back the results of this emergency, this timely matter we're gonna deal with, and ratify that action as part of the passing the policy.
That's your motion, Fred? That is my motion, Mayor.
Second.
Okay.
We have motion and second. Do we have any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Any abstaining? Motion passed.
Mr. Mayor, members of
Are
council,
we,
thank you.
are we waiving the rules on this?
No, because it's gonna come back. No need to waive the rules,
that's
because
fine.
it is gonna come
Okay.
back.
I mixed myself up.
That's fine.
Okay,
Okay.
we're good. Thank you.
Okay.
Second call to the public. Nothing, gentlemen. Scheduling of meetings. We have Thursday, January 16, 2020, Community Town Hall meeting will be held at the Train Depot at 6 p.m. Monday, January 27th, 2020, Council Strategic Retreat will be held at the Apache Gold Convention Center at 8 a.m. Regular council meeting scheduled for Monday, January 27, 2020 at 6 p.m. has been canceled, and that's due because of the retreat then. Okay. Any changes? Nothing on that? We're good? Future agenda items? Anybody have any future agenda items? So I call for the vote to go into executive session.
Motion made.
We have motion and second to go into,
And Mr. Mayor, I want to share with the people in the audience that we, in this facility, we do not have an E-section room to read. And so the door will remain unlocked, but we will have to clear the room. So we have no other agenda items after this, and so nothing, when we do come back in the regular session, we'll only to adjourn.
okay. So we have motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Thank you for coming to our meeting. Thank you very much.
I'm never